Have it. Okay. All right, back. We are having problems. Oh no, just let them. If so, we're gonna get going. Just music. No need. Okay, we're gonna a second. Bear with me and do this. Okay. One more. Oh, so I'm back. The F was side this 6 through 9. And we'll do more that I noticed in studies sometimes getting through because tangents like that. This is not good. The portion to make sure we get study that fit to looking. So let's stand him to as a good and there will be multiple. There we go. Oh. Right. Oh, Exodus. Sure that is. Oh, yes, it is. Chapter looking through. In English, follow Hebrew, and more in depth weeks. Correct. 4 more ones for the next week. And we got some real winners. We get and all let's do this. We're starting 2 verse 1. Yomer Yehovah el Moshe asher aseh lefaro biyad hazaka yishalchem uyad hazaka yigarshem me'artzo. Now, says Yehovah, this is the end of last week's parsha. Yomer Yehovah and Moshe. Now you shall see what I shall do. Remember, Moshe just had a what we might call in modern Israeli slang a fadicha. Yes, Moshe is the first recorded instance in the Torah of a fadicha. Well, actually, there are probably more before him, but he promised the Israelites he's going to save them, and he made the situation worse. Okay. I could get into a whole long philosophical treatise on why that's the case, why it worked in that direction. Oh, I could say things like, God wanted even more of a reason to bring the plagues on Egypt, or I could say that things were heading in a certain direction, and you can't just turn things around immediately. You have to kind of let it hit rock bottom before it turns around, or you have to when you put on the brakes. This is now physics, right? If you put on the brakes and you're going at a certain velocity is speed in a direction. If you're going at a certain velocity and you hit the brakes, then you're going to get a deceleration, but a deceleration is not instantaneous. There really is no such thing in this physical world, not that I know of, as an instantaneous deceleration. You're going to get a change in velocity over time, or the second derivative of the first derivative of velocity, or the second derivative of position. What that basically means is that you are going to slow down. You're going to get a reduction in speed that occurs over a certain amount of time. And that's the thing here. When Moshe and Aaron come to the elders of Israel and then to Pharaoh and say, hey, we're hitting the brakes here, we're putting the brakes on this thing, it doesn't immediately turn around. It has a certain momentum. It's already going in a certain direction, right? So that direction continues until the braking power applies and then is able to turn around. Maybe braking power would not be a good idea. If you have a body, a mass that's moving in a certain direction, okay, and you apply opposite thrusters, okay, you put thrusters of them. Let's see if this is going to work. No, where's the camera? Okay, I have let's see, let's do it this way. There we go. If I have a mass that's moving in this direction, okay, and I want to move it in the other direction, and I put thrusters, no, I don't know, and I push it in the opposite direction, I want it to go back this way. Well, first, it has to slow down. The first effect of my pushing in the opposite direction is it's going to slow it down in the direction that it's going in. It'll decelerate it, and then eventually it'll turn around the other direction. Well, that could be a philosophical, or shall we say a kind of metaphysical explanation of why the situation gets worse rather than better in Exodus chapter 5, right? And we saw that here. Just to go back, let me just peruse it in the English to make it go a little bit quicker. This is what the Lord, the God of Israel, says: "Let my people go so that they may hold the festival." Blah blah blah. Pharaoh said, "Who is Yehovah that I should obey him?" As we'll see, Pharaoh's going to find out real good who Yehovah is. He's going to come from someone who knows nothing about Yehovah and wants nothing to do with Yehovah, to someone who knows exactly who it is, because it's going to destroy him, his family, his servants, his people, his entire nation. Right? So he'll know who Yehovah is in just a little while longer, just a little patience, Pharaoh, and you'll find out exactly who the God of Israel is, as we all will. Okay, a little patience for all those non-believers. He will make his presence known when and how he chooses to do so. Okay, at any rate, so Moshe and Aaron, they decide to be a little bit of nudniks, and they say, the God of Hebrews has met with us. Now let's take a 3-day journey into the wilderness to offer sacrifices and Lord to Yehovah our God, or he may strike us with the plagues or with the sword. The irony here, right? He might strike us with the plagues or with the sword. Who's he going to strike with the plagues or the sword? He's going to strike Egypt with the plagues of the sword. There's so much irony, and there's such a so many mind games that are being played with Pharaoh, right? So I'll get on too much of a tangent, but it's really a giant, excuse the expression, mind screw. The whole 10 plagues, the way that Pharaoh is slowly but surely, brought to his knees and begging and whimpering and crying like a little baby before Yehovah. Okay, so, and his overall recognition, it's the way an evil person recognizes the God of Israel in this world. He doesn't recognize it through the wonder and glory of his of Yehovah's ma'asim, of his deeds on this earth, right? When I want to recognize Yehovah, I look at the birds chirping in the trees, or I look at the flowers, or I look at the stars, and I say, wow, this is how I come to understand the wisdom and the wonder of Yehovah. But an evil person like Pharaoh doesn't get to know Yehovah that way. He gets to know Yehovah by getting constantly beatings, harder and harder beatings, until it's like, oh, okay, I get it now. You're the God who's beating me into a submission to within an inch of my life. Okay, so Moses and Aaron, why are you? So they asked for this, let my people go stuff, and the king of Egypt said, Moses and Aaron, why are you taking the people away from their labor? Get back to your work. Then Pharaoh said, look, the people of the land are now numerous, and you're stopping them from working. And so then he makes the work even harder, right? He makes the situation even harder. He makes them go out and get their own teven, their own straw, and yet they have to come up with the same amount of bricks each day. So, 17, Pharaoh said, lazy, that's what you are, lazy. This is why you keep on saying, let's go and sacrifice to Yehovah. Now get to work. And then the Israelites are definitely nonplussed. The Israelite overseers, this is Exodus chapter 5, verse 19, followed along in the English. The Israelite overseers realized they were in trouble when they were told, you are not to reduce the number of bricks required of you each day. When they left Pharaoh, they found Moses and Aaron waiting to meet them, and they said, may Yehovah look on you and judge you. You have made us obnoxious to Pharaoh and his officials and put a sword in their hand to kill us. So now the overseers, or Israel, is ticked off at Moses and Aaron, and now Moses and Aaron, or Moses, who never wanted anything to do with this in the first place. He really did not want this job at all, right? And now, so Moses himself is ticked off, and he goes to God and he says, "What I didn't want this, and now what are you doing here, Moses returned to the Lord and said to Yehovah, why, Yehovah, have you brought trouble on his people? Is this why you sent me? Ever since I went to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he's brought trouble on his people, and you have not rescued your people at all." And then God says, I will paraphrase Exodus chapter 6, verse 1. Hold on there, fella. Just a little bit of patience. You ain't seen my moves yet. You're about to see my moves. Okay? And that's when business starts getting serious. So here we are in Exodus chapter 6, verse 1. I wish there were a way to put both the Hebrew and the English, so that way those who want to follow along in the English could. I don't know if there is. Let me just try one more time. Wait a second. I think I have to go. No, that's not how it works. There was a way to do it, but I forgot how to do it. Let's see. Multi, and then I go to NIV maybe, and then I can add one or something like that. I don't know. I wish I knew how to do it. So, but I'm just going to go in the Hebrew, and those who prefer following along in the English, you can follow along with your own favorite translation. Okay. So here we go. All right, so we are now in Exodus chapter 6, verse 2. Vayidaber Elohim el Moshe, Vayomer elav ani Yehovah. Right, I am Yehovah, the same thing that he told him in Exodus chapter 3. Right? Of course, he says this a lot throughout the Torah, but now maybe it even has more meaning because we have in Exodus chapter 3, verse 15. Right? Here, chapter 3, verse 15. ואומר עוד אלוהים אל משה כה תאמר אל בני ישראל יהוה אלוהי אבותיכם אלוהי אברהם אלוהי יצחק ואלוהי יעקב שלחני עליכם זה שמי לעולם וזה זכרי לדור ודור. Okay, so Moshe was just recently, the name of Yehovah was most recently revealed to Moshe. And now Yehovah is reminding who he is. Okay, verse 3, Wa'er'eh, and that's the name of this parsha. Va'era, era. Wa'era el Abraham, el Yitzhak, el Yaakov, el Shaddai. I appeared to Abraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, el Shaddai. There'd be a lot to say about this. We do know that that it says in many places that in a bunch of places with the patriarchs that God uses his name Yehovah. Okay. However, I think that we have to take this at face value. That when he says his name was only revealed as El Shaddai, that it was indeed only revealed as El Shaddai, and that might have been kind of paraphrasing, or maybe what do they call it? Retro interjection. Remember, the Torah is written at a time where the name Yehovah is already known. However, that would possibly require an entire study in and of itself, and we're not going to do it right now. Okay, Ushmi Yehovah lo nadati lahem, and my name Yehovah I did not make known to them. Well, we have to take this at face value. It says it right there, right? So in all the places previously where it says Yehovah spoke to Abraham or said to Abraham, I am Yehovah, that this is a paraphrase or this is a retro interjection of the name Yehovah into the earlier phrases of these earlier phrases in the Torah. Another thing that's interesting is we don't have, we know that names after this, I don't know if we can find it any in the 70 people that are listed as come. No, it wouldn't be. In the, Nadav, Avihu, no. In the descendants of Moshe, well, one of the ways we can know when the name Yehovah was known among the Israelites is when we start seeing names that incorporate Yehovah, like Yirmiyahu, Eliyahu, or Eliah, Yirmiyah, right? Alternative versions of the names. Well, let's keep an eye out and see if we see any of those here. We know there are none before, not that I could think of, no names before that have a Yahoo ending or Yehoyakim or anything like this, right? So it would seem that the name, that would be another proof that the name Yehovah was not known, and we have to take this verse at face value. Okay, but we'll keep an eye out for that. Okay. Verse 4, ורם הקים אותי את בריתי איתם לתת להם את ארץ כנען, את ארץ מגוריהם אשר גרו בה. רם אני שמעתי את נעקת בני ישראל אשר מצרים, עבידים אותם, ואזכור את בריתי. Well, it's time for right? We had this whole idea of poked, lifkod, Pei, Kuf Daled in Genesis, right? When God will remember you, will visit you, will revisit you, will turn his attention to you. The word appears a number of times, right? Kod Yifkod Yehovah, right? Or I'd have to find the exact phraseology, but in Genesis, right? We can find it actually at the end of Genesis as an example. Let's do that right now. Okay, so here we go. Genesis chapter 50, verse 24. ויאמר יוסף אל אחיו אנוכי מת ואלוהים פקוד יפקוד אתכם והעלה אתכם מן הארץ הזאת אל הארץ אשר נשבע לאברהם ליצחק וליעקב וישבע יוסף את בני ישראל לאמור פקוד יפקוד אלוהים אתכם יעליתם את עצמותי מזה. Right? So here we have the phrase appears twice. Once here in verse 24 and again in verse 25. pakod yifkod, right? So the pakod yifkod, that's repetition, or doubling means emphasis. So that's usually translated surely visit or revisit. Right. Robert Alter translated that as single out, and I like that. As I do many of his translations, I like that much better. I have often in the past translated this as turn his attention to. When God will, it's a very difficult verb to translate. I don't know if there is an equivalent verb in English, not that I can think of. But when God will turn his attention to you, or remember you, or will single you out, will focus his attention on you. Okay. Okay. So Joseph is saying, when God remembers you guys, okay, which is going to be 400 years in the future, although that number is up for argument. We'll hopefully have time to talk about that later. That when God remembers you or turns his attention towards you 400 years later from now, get my bones the heck out of here, right? And they were taken away and put in Shem. So what was I going to say? Right. So this lifkod, this revisiting, this turning the attention to, this singling out, this remembering, however you want to translate this verb, is exactly what's happening now. Okay? This is precisely what's happening in Exodus chapter 6. So, I have heard the cry, na'aka, or na'ak. Let's explore that word in a second. The groaning of the children of Israel, Hashem Mitzrayim avidim otam, because of the fact that, or through which Egypt is enslaving them, or is working them hard, enslaving them. Eskoret briti, and I remembered my covenant, his covenant with Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So here it is. This right here is a statement of pakod yifkod, right? Oops. Pakod yifkod. Here it is. Okay, this is one statement. I mean, there are others, but here's one example of this is now God, 400 years later, is turning his attention to Israel. Now, think about it. The Israelites were here for, well, Joseph came down, Joseph's children, well, let's go with Levite's children, Kohat. The son of Kohat was the father of Amram. Who's that again? We'll get to that in a second. No, that's Korach. Kahat Amram. Oh, okay. Kahat Amram is direct. Okay. So the son of Kahat is Amram. The son of Amram is Moshe, right? So these generations are just hanging out in Egypt, waiting for God to remember them, right? It's kind of like forgive the analogy, it's like a girl waiting by the phone for her guy to call her, right? She's waiting. When is he going to call? And the guy's out doing his own thing, and then finally, he says, "Now I'm going to go home and I'm going to call my girl. I'm going to call my girlfriend." And then he remembers her. He calls her, turns his attention towards her, and she's happy. She's been waiting by the phone. Okay, same kind of thing right here. Israel has been waiting by the phone for 400 years. And now it's time for God to pick up the phone and call his wife. And that's not an analogy I use lightly. That analogy is used by the prophets a number of times for Israel, right? Husband and God being the husband and Israel being the wife, right? If I am your husband, where is my honor? Okay. So let's even find that. 1 second. It's Hosea, right? Let's see if we can find it. Malachi. Malachi 1:6. Malachi 1:6. Let's take a look at that. Because the whole idea of this part of the study is jump around a little bit. Just wander along with the Torah wherever it takes us. So let's look at Malachi. Malachi. One of my top 12 favorite minor prophets. Okay, so Malachi 1. Here we go. 1, chapter 6. Ben Yichabed Av. Eved Adonav. Oh, I'm sorry. No, it's the wrong one. No, close enough. Let's go with it. I guess I was thinking of a different verse, but this illustrates the point. Ben Yichabed Av, son, honors his father. Eved Adonav, and a slave or a servant honors his master. Im Avani, if I am a father, where's my honor? Im Adonimani, morai, if I am a master, where is my fear? Amar Yehovah Tzevaot lechem haKohanim. To you, the Kohen says this to the God of hosts. Yehovah of hosts says this to you, the Kohanim. Bozesh shmi v'martem b'meh bazinu et shemecha. You profane, you spit on my name, and you say, how have we spit on your name? Magishim al mizbachi lechem magol. You serve on my altar rotten bread or disgusting bread, rotted bread, and you say, how have we disgusted you? Be'am lachem shulchan Yehovah nivzeh hu. How have we disgusted you? In your saying that the table of Yehovah has been made profane or has been cheapened or made disgusting. Okay, ki tagishun iver lizboach ein ra ki tagishu pisech v'chole ein ra. Bring forth a blind animal to sacrifice. You say it's not bad. And when you put a lame or a sick animal, you say it's not bad. Try bringing that. Try bringing that as an offering to your governor. Will he be pleased with it? Will he lift up your face? In other words, will he look favorably upon it? Amar Yehovah Tzevaot, says Yehovah, the God of hosts. Okay, well, that wasn't the verse I was looking for, but nonetheless, good verses. Okay. Alrighty. Back to Exodus chapter 6. So, verse 5. וגם אני שמעתי את נאקתת בני ישראל אשר מצרים והקדים אותם ואזכור את בריתי לכן אמור לבני ישראל אני יהוה והוצאתי אתכם מתחת סבלות מצרים. Okay, therefore say to the children of Israel, I am Yehovah, and I shall bring you out from under the suffering. Sivlot Sevel, Mitzrayim. It's modern Hebrew. Sevel or Lisbon means suffering. It means essentially the same thing in Biblical Hebrew, but I'd like to myself understand it a little bit more. Mitzrayim, v'itzalti etchem avodatam, and I will save you from their slavery, from their enslavement of you. I will save you from avodatam, from their enslavement, meaning the Egyptian enslavement. Ga'alti etchem. And I shall redeem you. Bizroa nituya b'shvatim gedolim. Na'akat? No, I wanted to first look up na'akat. So, let's see where it appears. Thing. Na'akatam mipnei. Let's just this for once. To open general statement. The judges who stand, they would listen to their judge. They quickly turned ancestors who had been obedient to the of the book of Judges. There's going to be judges, okay? And the word na'akat is used in Judges chapter 2, verse 18. Let's take a look at that in the Hebrew. So it says, V'chi Hakim Yehovah lahem shoftim haya Yehovah im hashofet והושיעם מיד אויביהם כל ימי השופט כי ינחם יהוה מנאקתם מפני לוחציהם מדוחקיהם. Okay, so to translate this, I'll just do my own translate. V'hi ekim Yehovah lahem shoftim, and so it was that Yehovah established for them judges. V'haya Yehovah im hashofet, and as Yehovah was with the judge, and Yehovah was with the judge, v'hoshi'am miyad oivehem, and he, meaning the judge, or maybe meaning Yehovah, redeemed, Lahoshia, saved them from the hand of their enemies. Kol yemei hashofet, all of days of the shofet, ki yenachem Yehovah, because God was, how would you translate this into English? Yenachem, God was felt sorry for them. I'm thinking of the correct. He relented. Ki yenachem Yehovah mina'akatam. It caused God to relent. Mina'akatam, from their groaning. Mitnei lochatzim, mitnei lochatzehem v'dochakehem, from their oppressors and those who pressed upon them. Another way of saying dochek, is to kind of press upon. Okay, so that's that. So we see na'aka. Na'aka is a groaning. 30, Exodus, Judges 2:18. Okay, and it appears 4 places. Let's look at Na'ak. Job, Ezekiel. Yeah, so it's rare, Aramaic Na'ak, rare. Appears in 2 places here, Job 24:12 and Ezekiel 30:24. Zorot Paro, when Na'ak Na'akot halal. Okay, let's leave that. And off we go back to here. So, Megam ani shamati et na'akat, the groanings of Bnei Israel, of the children of Israel, Asher mitzrayim avidim otam eskor et briti, lachen emor levnei Israel ani Yehovah. Hotzeti etchem mitachat sivlot. I want to look up sivlot. Again, I know what the word means, just from modern and the context in biblical Hebrew, but I'd like to get a little more insight into it. When I come across a word that I feel like I need to know better, then I look it up. I don't pretend, to know everything. In fact, one of the great ways I learn is by teaching. So let's look this up. So sivala, burdens, hard labor. Sivala, burden, heavy labors. Let's see if there's a more underlying root. Saval, this is what we really want. Yeah. Sebel, a load or a burden. Let's see where that appears. It has only 3 occurrences. First Kings. Sevel Beit Yosef. Let's take a look at Nehemiah 4:17 for a second. Right. Yeah, this is talking about the builders of the wall in the time of Nehemiah. Nehemiah rebuilt the city of Jerusalem, and one of the things he did was rebuilt the wall around Jerusalem, right, that had been ripped down by the Babylonians. Habonim b'choma, v'anosim b'sevel, omsim b'achat yado, oseh b'melacha v'achat machseket ashalach. Okay, so those who were building the wall, habonim b'choma, v'anosim b'sevel, and those who were carrying burdens, omsim b'achat yado, were carried or lifted up in one of their hands, oseh b'melacha, their tool basically, or they did their work with one hand, and one of them was holding the shalach, would be like the flying weapon, the weapon they translate it as here. Okay, so the sevel would be the same thing as like a masa, a burden that's to be carried. Sevel, okay, similar to the modern Hebrew. It really means almost the same thing in modern Hebrew. Okay, let's look at one more. Psalm 81:6. הסיר אותי מסבל שכמו, כפיו מדוד תבורנה. Let's look at this in a bit of context. 81:6. כי חוק לישראל הוא משפט לאלוהי יעקב, עדות בהוסף שמו בצאתו על ארץ מצרים, שפת לא ידעתי אשמע, הסיר אותי מסבל שכמו, כפיו מדוד תעבורנה. Poetic. We'll go with the English translation just for a second. At any rate, we don't even have to. It's the same idea there, the burden. Okay, so sevel is a burden. Let's go back to Exodus chapter 6. Alrighty. Sivlot Mitzrayim. So Sivlot Mitzrayim, this word is, I guess, kind of a synonym to the word masa, burden, heavy load. Itzalti etchem avodatam v'ga'alti etchem, and I will redeem you b'zeroa nituya, with an outstretched hand, u'b'shvatim gedolim, and with great judgments. Okay, so Yehovah wants to make, not just get Israel out of there, he wants to make a big show. Right? He wants the whole world to see. I don't know about the whole world, but he certainly wants the Egyptians to see, and and the Israelites to see, and the surrounding nations. Okay. Verse 7. V'lakachti etchem li la'am, and I shall take you to me as a people. Hayiti lachem le'elohim, and I will be for you as a God. Yadatem ki ani Yehovah Elohechem. And that's done on Mount Sinai. That's really where it's done, right? That's the sealing of the covenant. Ani Yehovah Elohechem amotzi etchem mitachat sivlot Mitzrayim. I am Yehovah, your God, who takes you out from under the burden of Mitzrayim. So mitachat sivlot, again, we have the phrase here, mitachat sivlot, okay? And tachat means under, right? So sivlot. So the sivlot is like the masa, it's the burden that's on top of you, okay? So here's you, and here's the sivlot. Here's the burden on top of you, and God is saying, whoop, I'm taking you out, and the burden will just fall to the floor or whatever. So that more intensifies our understanding of the word sevel or sivlot in this case, right? That's a burden that's borne on the shoulders or on the back, right? Okay. Verse 8, V'eveti etchem el ha'aretz asher nasati et yadi, and I will bring you to the land which I raised my hand, which I raised my hand to give it to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I will give it to you as an inheritance. I am Yehovah. Raise my hand again is a figurative way of saying swore, right? Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I do solemnly swear, blah, 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 right? Same thing today. Verse 9, וידבר משה כן אל בני ישראל ולא שמעו אל משה מקוצר רוח ומעבודה קשה. And so now Moses goes and tells them all this stuff. So now basically what happened here, things aren't working out so well. And Moses goes to God and said, hey, what's the story here? Things are worse. And God says, all of this wonderful stuff, wait and you'll see what I'm going to do. I'm going to take you out with great signs and great wonders and all of this highfalutin language, right? These big promises, and the people of Israel don't even want to hear it, right? Mikotze ruach, literally from shortness of breath, you could say, but figuratively it means they were just fed up, right? Avodah kasha, and from hard labor. Let's see how Mr. Abrams translates this. This is Exodus 6, verse 9. I want to see how he deals with, I want to see how he deals with kotze ruach. Here. Oh, gotta go further. Okay. Further. Back. We said that was Exodus 6, verse 9. Exodus 6, 9. And Moses spoke thus to the Israelites, but they did not heed Moses out of shortness of breath. So he translates it quite literally in hard bondage. Do you have something to say about that? Let's see. Shortness, Hebrew ruach, can mean breath, wind, or spirit. Right. The translation follows Rashi's understanding of the phrase. The construction that is attractive because of its correctness. The slaves groaning under hard bondage, a condition made all the harder by Moses's bungled intervention. I like that. Bungled intervention, can scarcely catch their breath and so are in no mood to listen to Moses. Others render this term as impatience or crushed spirit. So he takes it quite literally. I like his translation because it points out that it does have a literal interpretation there, but I don't think it means that. I think it means mikotze ruach. I mean, fed up, basically. Me'avodah kasha. I don't think it's meant literally there. Okay. Because even if you're short of, you're not going to be short of breath when Moses comes speak to you, right? You're going to be resting at a certain point. So it doesn't make sense in a literal translation. But I do like the fact that he translated literally anyway, because it does point out that it does have kind of a literal meaning that could make sense in that case, even though I don't think it is the literal meaning that's intended in that case. So nice translation. I'm going to have to disagree with Robert Alter. However, I think he could have pointed out that that's a possible way of seeing it, or there's a double meaning there, but yet in his translation have gone with a more figurative interpretation. All right. So we are in Exodus chapter 6, verse 10. וידבר יהוה אל משה לאמור בוא דבר אל פרעה מלך מצרים וישלח את בני ישראל מארצו. Okay, So now it's time for the show to start. Time for the games to begin. Moses is being sent back to Pharaoh. He already went to Pharaoh once and said, "Let my people go." That didn't work out too well, right? Going back to chapter 5, let my people go, so that they can make a festival for me, a yearly festival for me in the desert. Who is Yehovah that I should listen to? Is to send Israel. And I have no intention of sending Israel. So, and then he makes their burdens even worse, right? So that was the first approach towards Pharaoh. That was a complete, ala panim. That was a complete failure. And so here we go again, but this time, second time's a charm. Okay. Why ידבר משה לפני יהוה לאמור, הן בני ישראל לא שמעו אליי ואיך ישמעני פרעה ואני ערל שפתיים. So Moses, who really still wants absolutely nothing to do with this job whatsoever, right? He's kind of shoved into the leadership position. He wanted nothing to do with it. He never wanted anything to do with it from day one. He's fed up. So everybody's fed up, okay, except God. He knows exactly what's going, what the plan is here. But Moses says to God, Israel didn't even, I gave them this highfalutin speech, this glorious speech, and they didn't even listen to me. Pharaoh for sure is not going to listen to me, right? He's kind of using a kal v'chomer. Maybe he was a Talmudic scholar. Maybe we'd call him Moshe Rabbeinu after all. He must have been a Talmudic scholar. He's using a kal v'chomer. If the Israelites who are my own people and are supposed to be on my side didn't listen to me, then for sure, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, for sure he's not going to listen to me. Oh, there you have it. Proof that the Talmud is divine because Moses uses a kal v'chomer. That's it. I give up. I'm not a Karaite anymore. I retire. I'm now a Talmudic Jew because of this verse. Okay. I don't think so. Okay, I didn't even have to say that. It's obvious I'm being sarcastic. Okay, so then we go into genealogy. Yes, without the use of 21andMe, without the use of Ancestry.com, long before the Mormons existed, we have genealogy. The game the whole family can play. Or is that incest? No, that's a bad joke. A friend of mine used to make that joke. Okay, we'll stick with genealogy. All right. What? Verse 13, וידבר יהוה אל משה ואל אהרון ויצווים אל בני ישראל. ואל פרעה מלך מצרים להוציא את בני ישראל מארץ מצרים. So this is what you would call kind of an introductory or summary sentence. So we get the setup now, and now we get basically a break, okay? In fact, we see here we have this peh over here, okay, which is a parsha ptucha, okay? It's an open paragraph, which means it's kind of like the end, a major chapter end or a major paragraph end. The end. Okay, we got the setup here. Okay, Moses is now getting down to business. Okay, but now we kind of have an introductory chapter. So that's the end of that. Close Act 1 of Exodus. Well, it's not Act 1 because we have other acts before, but close the current act of Exodus. Open the next act. The next act is we're going to get down to business here with the 10 plagues. And so this act is starting off, as often does in the Torah, with an introductory sentence that's going to introduce the theme of the next section, the next act. וידבר יהוה אל משה ואל אהרון, and Yehovah spoke to Moses and to Aaron, ויצווים אל בני ישראל, and commanded them regarding, or to say to the children of Israel, the say is implied, and to Pharaoh Melech Mitzrayim, and basically commanded them on how to take the children of Israel out of Egypt. So that's the introductory sentence for this next act. Okay, it's kind of a summary or an introductory sentence. We have that a lot in the Torah. We'll have an introductory sentence. Well, we'll call this an introductory sentence to be exact. And then at the end of an act, we also often have a summary sentence or a summary paragraph, which sums everything up. And a lot of times the rabbis, stupid as they are, understand this as a unnecessary repetition, and they derive all kinds of cuckoo things from it. But we're smarter than that, being Karaites. Okay, verse 14. And before. So now, how are we going to introduce this section? Well, we're going to do what the Torah often does. We're going to go through a genealogy. Okay, specifically, we're going through a genealogy of Moses and secondarily Aharon. Okay, but this entire genealogy is only meant to introduce Moses, Aaron, and then some other important figures like Korach and Elazar, Itamar, and a couple of others that are going to have Pinchas, a couple of others that are going to have a major role in upcoming chapters and books. Okay, so Rashi Bet Avotam Bnei Reuven. So these are the heads of the houses of their fathers. Bnei Reuven Bechor Yisrael, the children of Reuben, the firstborn of Israel. Hanoch, Palu, Hetzron, Karmi, Ela Mishpachot Reuven. Now let's just square this away with my little spreadsheet here. So one of the things, I've got a number of different spreadsheets going to try to figure things out. And one of them is the sons of Jacob. So yeah, here we have, this is coming now from Genesis, where it speaks about the 70 people in Yaakov's household that went down to Egypt. So we have Hanoch, Palu, Hetzron, Karmi. And this is verified in Hanoch, Palu, Hetzron, Karmi. So maybe I should even make a note. Comments. Sons of Ben, verified in Exodus 6:14. Okay. That's that. Verse 15, V'nei Shimon, Yimuel, Yamin, Ohad, Yachin, Zohar, Shaul, Ben HaKena'anit, El Mishpachot Shimon. Let's verify that. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the son of the Canaanite woman. Naughty, naughty, naughty. Not supposed to be messing around with Canaanite women. So we've got Yimuel, Yamin, Ohad, Yachin, Zohar, and Shaul. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in total. With Shaul being the son of the Canaanite woman. Yimuel, Yamin, Ohad, Yachin. Yep, so it's the same bunch. It's really not so hard. I wrote, it's really so hard. Okay. List that here. Zohar. So, set a little T here. Zohar. Okay. So this is also verified. I'll just make a little comment. Sons of Shimon, verified in Exodus 6, and this is 6:15. Is that right? Exodus 6:15. All right. This should really go here. And there you have it. Okay, so we got Shimon, and then we get to Levi. And this is something I pointed out this morning in this morning's Torah study, which is something very interesting. And what is it? We have the only goal here is to give the genealogy of Levi. So why give the genealogy of Reuven and Shimon? And we notice that after Levi, none of the other genealogies are given. Then we go right into the story of the plagues. Okay. So why give Reuven and Shimon? And I think the answer is very clear. As I mentioned it this morning, you cannot mention the third child without mentioning the first and the second child. It would be improper. It would be disrespectful to the firstborn and the secondborn to go straight to Levi. If you're going to mention Levi, you've got to mention Reuven and Shimon first. Reuven is the firstborn of Yaakov, the Bechor. It even says there in verse 14, Bechor Yisrael. Shimon is the secondborn, and Levi is the thirdborn, all children of Leah. I wonder if Robert Abrams picks up on that. I bet he does. Let's just see. So he says, genealogical lists, as one can see repeatedly in Genesis, serve an important compositional role to mark the borders between different narrative segments. The story of Moses' early history and the prelude to the plagues is now completed, and before the unleashing of the first of the 10 fearful divine blows against Egypt, the genealogical list constitutes a long narrative kaisura. What the heck is a kaisura? I'm gonna look that up. I never heard that word before in my life. Whoa. Fine. A surah. Break between words with a metrical foot. Within a metrical foot. In modern verse, a pause near the middle of the line. Yikes. I guess it has a very... Yes. A usually rhetorical break in the flow of sound in the middle of a line or verse. Can we get an example? Did you know kaisurai are those slight pauses one makes as one reads verse? While it may seem that their most obvious role is to emphasize the metrical construction of verse, more often we need these little stops, which may be but are not necessarily set off by punctuation, to introduce the cadence and phrasing of natural speech into the metrical scheme. The word kaisura, borrowed from the late Latin, is ultimately from the Latin caedere, meaning to cut. Nearly as old as the 450-year-old poetry census is the general meaning of a break or an interruption. For example, for Rhapsody's verse, medical kaisura. Okay, I think we get the idea. Some kind of poetic pause. Yikes. Long narrative kaisura. Okay, pause. All right. Although this list begins with the sons of Reuben and Shimon, because they are the two firstborn in the order of Jacob's sons, it is not a complete roll call of the tribes, but is meant only to take us to the tribe of Levi, and then to culminate in the two sons of the tribe of Levi, Moses and Aaron, who are poised to carry out their fateful mission to Pharaoh. Other Levites appear to be singled out because they have to play roles in subsequent narrative, father's house, in the system, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Social unit of the extent. Gee, this guy's style, I like this guy's style. He said almost exactly what I had to say. He must know what he's talking about. Okay. He really did almost bring up a number of the points that I brought up, which is nice. Okay. Always good to be in good company. So, So, where was we? Right. I was about to say something and now I can't remember. Oh, yeah. I was going to say this harkens back to the verse in... Oh, it's got to be Genesis. Let me open it up in a new link. Got to be about Genesis 42, I guess. So we can find him. I did. No, let's go down again. see if I can find it. One second. Almost there. I can't find it right now. 1 second. Ah, here it is. Verse 33, Genesis chapter 43, verse 33. וישבו לפניו הבכור כבכורתו הצעיר כצעירתו ויתמהו האנשים איש אל רעהו. So when Joseph sits down to eat with the Hebrews separately, right? It says the Egyptians ate separately, Joseph ate separately, and the brothers, the remaining brothers, ate separately. They're seated from the oldest to the youngest, right? Only one missing, the second to youngest. That's of course Joseph. And so this again goes to show that hierarchy, right? There's a certain hierarchy. There's oldest to youngest. Everything in the Torah is hierarchy. I always say you have to think of the Torah as kind of an army. Everyone knows his rank. Everyone knows his position. Everyone fits somewhere in the hierarchy. In fact, right? It's called the word tzavah is used later in the Exodus or in the desert to refer to Israel, right? That they camped like an army. Okay. So everyone knows their position. Everyone knows their hierarchy, and the hierarchy is always determined again by the paternal line, by the patrilineal line. Patrilineal line, I think, is redundant. The paternal line or the patrilineal position. Patrilineal means paternal line, lineal line. So therefore, we see that same idea here, that before we even think of speaking about the descendants of Levi, that first we've got to at least mention Reuven and Shimon. Everything has to be in a certain order. And then we can forget the rest because we got up to the ones we wanted to. Levi. It's kind of like if you have, I don't know, if you have a bunch of things in a pile, you have to take the first two things off the pile before you can get to the thing you want, the third thing. Okay. Maybe that's an analogy, or maybe not. Okie dokie. So, then we get to Levi. Verse 16, Ele Shemot B'nei Levi, Litoldotam, Gershon, Kahat, Merari. So the three sons of Levi. So that's Exodus 6:16. Let's make a note of that. And then we're told that Levi lived for 137 years. So we're trying to figure out the whole 400-year thing, which is a lot harder than it looks. So I started this spreadsheet over here. Should make this a little bit bigger. Get a nicer font. So we have Levi lived for 137 years. So we'll keep that, change all the fonts, for God's sakes. Alrighty. Jacob. Alrighty. That looks nicer. So. Oh, I haven't been sharing the screen. Darn it. I have not been sharing the screen. I'm a bad boy. Let's try this again. There we go. Okay, so alrighty. So here we are. Ele Shemot Bnei Lewi Letodatam Gershon. Okay, we read that. Bnei Gershon Libni Shim'i Lemishpachotam. Now it's interesting. One of the children of Levi is Gershom, and we're also told in Exodus 1, maybe 2. Yeah. Yeah. So Moses' son is Gershom. Gershom. Kemar Ger Haiti Eretz Nochria, because he said I was a sinner in a foreign land. Gershom. And one of the sons of Levi was Gershon. I wonder if there's a connection. I wonder if Moses thought of Gershom also because of his, well, it wouldn't be his grandfather, it would be his grand uncle, Gershon, Uncle Gershon. It's just like having an uncle in the carpet business. Okay. Where were we? Right. Anywho, verse 17, Bnei Gershon Livni Shim'i Lemishpachotam. So let's see, this makes our list here. No, it doesn't, because they're not mentioned in the 70. Bnei Kohat, Omram, Amram, Waitar, Hebron. Hebron. Right? He Kiryat Arba. Nikodem. Right? Interesting. I wonder if he's named after Hebron, after the place where, well, let's see. This is the son of Kohat. This is Uncle Hebron, Moses' Uncle Hebron. And daddy is Kahat, grandpa is Levi, and great grandpa is Jacob. Jacob is buried in Hebron. So I wonder if he's named for that, or it's just a coincidence. Well, if I click on this, it's not going to relate back to that, but let's just see what it has to say. Proper name of a location, proper name, masculine, location, you know that. Proper name, the grandson of Levi. Name of Caleb's family. So I wonder if there's a connection. Maybe, because all the names Hebron occur, Exodus, Numbers, is all after the Exodus, all these chronologies, again, are the same people. And then we've got name in Caleb's family. So Caleb, again, is the generation of the Exodus. So it could be maybe named after the place where great-grandpa, great-great-grandpa, and great-great-great-grandpa and mothers are buried. Who knows? Uziel, Shnei Hayei, Kohat, Shloshim, Shalosh Shloshim Ma'at Shana, 133 years is how long Kohat lived. We have that marked down over here. Right? ובני מררי מחלי מושי אלה משפחות הלוי לתולדותם, ייקח עמרם את יוכבד. So that's Moses' mom, Yocheved. Dodato is aunt. Is there any other meaning for the word doda? Father, sister? Yeah. That's what they say. Uncle's wife. Shchavet dodato ervat dodo. So Leviticus 20:20 says, do not marry your uncle's wife or your aunt. Kind of weird. Weird. So much incest going on. I wonder if there's anything else it could mean. A dod. Well, something comes to mind. Dodim. I mean, dod just means beloved. Maybe it means beloved. I'm just speculating here. Let's have a little fun here. Let's grab this verse and look at a bunch of translations, and then we'll look at let's look at Robert Alter. 20. Such a marriage was banned as incestuous by the priestly writers to whom scholarship attributes this passage. This is not the only instance in which a union prohibited by later legislation is recorded without comment. Compare Jacob's marrying two sisters, right? And might well reflect an authentic memory of the period when the prohibition was not in force. Only now is the anonymous Levite daughter of 2-1 given a name. That's a good point. So obviously his aunt. Okay, so Doda is clearly, even according to him, aunt. But just for the heck of it, let me go here and see if any of these zillions of translations translates it anything other than aunt. We're in verse 20. Father, sister, 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 father, sister. Everyone's got it as father, sisters. Interesting. Aramaic Bible in plain English. I think this is actually from the Syriac. Translated from the Syriac, if I'm not mistaken. And here, daughter of his paternal uncle. Let's put that aside. Brenton Septuagint translation, daughter of his father's brother. So that's cousin. Father, sister, aunt, father, sister, father, sister, father, sisters, father, sister. And we got all those. Additional translation? No, we don't need additional translations. But let's look at the Aramaic Bible in plain English. If I remember correctly, this is a Christian translation and the Septuagint. So what is the Peshitta Holy Bible translated? So I think we've read this translation once or twice before. So let's find out. All right. So it's translated from the Syriac. So the Peshitta, classical Syriac, Peshitta, is the standard version of the Bible for churches in the Syriac tradition, including the Maronite Church. The Maronites they're basically the Bulky, the Maronites, the Arab Christians are Maronites, right? So what are the Maronites? They're just a particular Mid-Eastern branch of Christianity? Christian ethno-religious group? Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Got it. Close enough. So, yeah, so a whole bunch of basically Arab Christians, or as we might say, Arabized Levantine Christians. The consensus within biblical scholarship, although not universal, is that the Old Testament of the Peshitta was translated into Syriac from biblical Hebrew, probably in the 2nd century AD, and the New Testament of the Peshitta was translated from the Greek. Etymology: Peshitta is derived from the Syriac mapakta psita, Peshitta, Peshitta, literally meaning simple version. However, it is also possible to translate Peshitta as common, straight, as well as the usual translation is simple. Syriac is a dialect or group of dialects of Eastern Aramaic originating around Edessa. Okay, it is written in the Syriac alphabet and is transliterated into the Latin script in a number of ways, generating different spellings of the name Peshitta, etc., etc. Peshitta had so again, it's a Christian translation, but Old Testament of the Peshitta was translated into Syriac from biblical Hebrew. It was done by the Middle Eastern Christians, or some groups of Middle Eastern Christians, translating the biblical Hebrew into Aramaic, Syriac. The Peshitta, brief history. The Peshitta had from the 5th century onward a wide circulation in the East and was accepted and honored by the whole diversity of sects of Syriac Christianity. Had a great missionary influence. The Armenian and Georgian versions, as well as the Arabic and the Persian, owe not a little to the Syriac. The famous Nestorian tablet of Shangan witnesses to the presence of the Syriac scriptures in the heart of China in the 8th century. The Peshitta was first brought to the West by Moses of Minden, a noted Syrian ecclesiastic who unsuccessfully sought a patron for the work of printing it in Rome and Venice. However, he was successful in finding such a patron in the imperial channel of the Holy Roman Empire at Vienna, 1555, Albert Wittmannstadt. He undertook the printing of the New Testament, and the emperor bore the cost of the special types which had to be cast for its issue in Syriac. Emmanuel Tremelius, the converted Jew whose scholarship was so valuable to the English reformers and divines, made use of it, etc., etc. Okay, so what was the London polyglot? I don't know what the London polyglot is. Oh, okay. All right. Well, there you have it. So it's a Christian translation of possibly the biblical Hebrew into Syriac. There's a picture of it. That's Syriac. Okay. So at any rate, it translates it as cousin, basically, the daughter of the aunt. And then the other one we have is Brenton's Septuagint edition. Let's take a look at this. Let's find out what this is. So obviously, yeah. So the Septuagint version of the Old Testament is a translation of the Septuagint by Sir Lancelot Charles Lee Brenton, originally published by Samuel Bagster and Sons, London, in 1844, in English only. In the 1851 edition of the Apocrypha were included And by about 1870, an edition with parallel Greek text existed. Another one appeared in 1884. In the 20th century, is reprinted by Zondervan, among others. Codex Vaticanus is used as the primary source. And the Codex Vaticanus is one of the oldest copies of the Bible, one of the four great uncial codices. So this is in the Greek. The Codex is named after its place of conservation in the Vatican Library, where it has been kept since at least the 15th century. It was written on 759 leaves of vellum. So the primary source is this sucker over here. Oops. Which we can clearly see. Ooh, what happened there? At any rate, we can clearly see it's in the Greek. So it's translated from this Greek version of the Septuagint into English. So if we really wanted to get crazy, we could trace down this version of Septuagint. So we go to the Codex Vaticanus. And we go to see also like a external links somewhere. Maybe they have a copy of it online. External links, digitized copy. Typographical facsimile. Let's go for that. Choose an amount. Oh my. I don't know, this is the Old Testament or the New Testament. This page is not available on the web. Okay. Let's unwind a little bit. Digivat lib. Okay. Well, there it is. But I think it's just going to be, this will take a lot of research. I'd have to find the right page. It doesn't say chapter or anything like that. So, all right, we're not going to go this far. So if I have a couple free hours one of these days, I'll back in there. I'll try to find the Greek. Then I'll have to find a way to translate the Greek, et cetera, et cetera. But if we go by this English translation of the Septuagint, then it should be noted that it's interesting. You see this, folk? And Abram took his wife Yocheved, the daughter of his father's brother. So they translate Doda not as aunt, but cousin. So there are two translations, this Pshita and this English translation of the Septuagint, which translates it as female cousin. So who knows? I don't know where they get that from, where they get that idea from, but yeah, we'll just leave it at that. So I'm not going to go chasing it down right now. Okay. So right. Dodato. Ant. Most of the translations have ant. Robert Alter has ant. Let's check also Shokin. Bible. Just for the heck of it. So I'm sure he'll have Exodus 6:20. Oops. 6:20. Amnon took himself Yocheved, his aunt, as a wife. So the Shokin edition, which is by Professor Everett Fox, also has aunt. Okay. Well, there you have it. And there you have it. Alrighty. So Amnon marries Yocheved, that's Moshe's mom. Ushne Chaye Amram Sheva Shoshim Uma'at Shana 137 years. We've already put this over here, I believe. Same amount that Levi lived. So he lived the same amount of years as his grandfather. Okay. Uvenei Yitzhar. 1 second. So this is Uncle Yitzhar. Korach. And of course he's mentioned because that's our boy Korach. Right? Number 16. Kach Korach ben Yitzhar. Number 16, chapter 16, verse 1. That's our boy that goes full rebellion. We'll get to that when the time comes. So that's Korach. And that's the reason he's mentioned here, right? Because not all of the, we're talking about. Okay, so let's just put this in context a little bit here. We should do a family tree, but I'm sure. Let's see. Okay, there we go. And there you have it. Oh, oops, that's not what I meant to do. Google Lens. Okay, good enough. So there we go. There's the family tree of Levi. So Amram, that's Aaron, Miriam, Moses. Amram's wife is Yocheved. We've got Uncle Yitzhar, Uncle Hebron, and Uncle Uziel. So Korach is Moses's and Aaron's cousin, right? They're the same grandfather. That's Kohat. So Moses has his dad Amram, his mother Yocheved. He's got Uncle Yitzhar. He's got Uncle Hebron and Uncle Uziel. Let's do another one just for the heck of it. I'm going to make this big. It works. I don't want to freak out. Okay. Oops. No, that's something else. Okay, enough. So let's just keep this up in case we need to refer to it. Okay, verse 22, B'nai Uziel. So we've got Uncle Uziel. He's got these three children, Mishael, El, Safan, and Sitri. Interesting name, El Safan. I guess that could mean hidden God, or it could mean God of the North. You hear that, Volk? Check this out. So Moshe's uncle Uziel had a son named El Safan, which could be translated as God of the North. And there is a statement in.
Isn't that like the mountain that Ale was thought to be?
Right. Right. So God came from the north. From the north. Oops. 1 second. Here, Job 32:27. Out of the north he comes in golden splendor. God comes in awesome majesty. I don't want to go too far off track. This word will appear many, 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 many times. Let me just see something here. Yeah, we're going too far afield. But just for the heck of it, just for 1 more second. Psalms. It's Job. North smoke. All right, forget it. This is going too far afield. Okay, let's get back to this. Just a thought. The God of the North, maybe. Sitri. Okay. Verse 23. Yikach Aaron et Elisheva. So Aaron's wife is Elisheva. Not to be confused with David's wife, Batsheva. Bat Aminadav. Achot Nachshon. Lo Leisha. ותלד לו את נדב ואת אביהו. So we know what happens to Nadav and Avihu. Nachshon. So Nachshon is right. Yehuda Nachshon ben Aminadav. So Nachshon was a Judean, was a Yehudaite, son of Aminadav. So Kach Aaron et Elisheva bat Aminadav achot Nachshon. Right. So so basically, Aaron married a Judahite girl named Elisheva, the daughter of Aminadav. So here's the line of Aminadav. Here we go. First Chronicles 2:10. I'll just go to the English just to make it quick for a second. So we got Chetzron. So Peretz, well, we know who Peretz is. That's Tamar and Judah's son. Sons of Peretz were Chetzron, Hamul. Sons of Chetzron were these three. Ram was the father of Aminadav, and Aminadav the father of Nachshon, the leader of the people of Judah. So Nachshon was the father of Salmon, Salmon the father of Boaz. Something doesn't make sense here. We're not going to go into it right now. Anywho, so Aaron marries a Judahite girl. And they give birth to Nadav and Abihu, who are tragically killed. Right? When they bring an sanctioned fire. We know that story. We'll get to it in the book of Numbers. Elazar and Itamar, and then Elazar and Itamar take over. Uvnei Korach, Asir, Urkana, Avi Asaph, Ela Mishpachot Karchi. And we have the children of Korach. Remember, it's a whole family of Korach. He and his children were sucked up, and his family were sucked up into the ground, and his sons. Right? And then there's a psalm for the Bnei Korach. Let's look that up for a second. So interesting. So Korach, so the story of Korach is in Numbers 16. Let's go to the English for 1 second. One second. Oh, darn it. I lost it. One second. One second. soon as he finished saying all this, the ground, so this is Numbers chapter 16, verse 31. As soon as he finished saying this, all this, the ground under them split apart, and the earth opened its mouth and swallowed them and their households, and all those associated with Korach, together with their possessions. They went down alive into the realm of the dead, with everything they owned. The earth closed over them, and they perished and were gone from the community. At their cries, all the Israelites around them fled, shouting, "The earth is going to swallow us too." So that would imply Korach and his sons. Korach, the son of Yitzhar. Let's see if any of the sons are mentioned by name. No. 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 But then we have the sons of Korach. Mentioned in. Whoa. Let's go backwards. Okay. Psalm 42. Maskil livnei Korach. Mnatzech livnei Korach. Maskil 44. Shoshanim livnei Korach. So all of these here. So 42. Let's go back to 41. Right. So here, so Psalms 42 is for the sons of Korach. I love this Psalm 42. Ki ayal ta'arog al afikei mayim. Kin nafshi ya'arog elecha Yehovah. Such a beautiful psalm. I forgot that I used to sing it with a friend of mine. Vindicate me. I read it really quickly. I thought it said vaccinate me, my God. Okay. So 44 is for the sons of Korach. 45 is for the sons of Korach. So 42, 44, 45. 46 of or for the sons of Korach. 47. So 42 through 47, except for 43 so far. 48, sons of Korach. 49, sons of Korach. And we get a Psalm of Asaph. And that's it. So 42 through 49. So Psalms 42 through 49 minus 43 are all for the sons of Korach, whatever the heck that means. Assuming it's the same Korach. Psalm 42 is for the sons of Korach. And it says in many Hebrew manuscripts, Psalms 42 and 43 constitute one psalm. So there we go. So that would imply that 43 is also for the sons of Korach, the sons of Korach, I mean. So through 49 and then 50. So Psalms 42 through 49 are of or for the sons of Korach. Let's write this for a second. Psalms 42 to 49 are of for the sons of Korach. Okay. And there you have it. Okay, so that's Korach. We'll hear a lot more about him later. And these are the sons of Korach. Ubnei Korach, Asir, Elkanah, Aviasaph, Ela Mishpachot HaKarchi. Are they ever mentioned anywhere? Name other than just in Chronicles, and here, Sir Elkanah. That's a different Elkanah. That's Elkanah, the father of Shmuel. One second. And that's Elkanah ben Yeroham. So different Elkanah. This is Elkanah, the son of Korach. And then we get the Chronicles, which is genealogy. Okay. And Aviasaph, only mentioned there. So that's that. Those are the sons of Korach. They're not mentioned really anywhere else except here and sometimes in Chronicles where genealogies are rehashed. Okay, Elazar ben Aaron לקח לו מבנות פותיאל לו לאישה. So we don't even know who Putiel is, right? He only appears once. ותלד לו פנחס אל ראשי אבות, but this is the important thing here. We've got our Pinchas, that's why he's mentioned, that's why Putiel, that's why the daughters of Putiel are mentioned. So Elazar, the son of Aaron. So Elazar's daughter-in-law is one of the daughters of Putiel, and they give birth to Pinchas. And that's our Pinchas, who, well, we know he did, who killed right here. Not there. Well, we know the story of Pinchas. Okay. Elazar. 7. Right. Okay. So, but again, that's why Pinchas is mentioned, because we're going to see him later. Right? So that's it. That's the genealogy there of the family of Aharon. Okay. Verse 26, Hu Aaron u'Moshe asher amar Yehovah lehem hotziu et bnei Yisrael me'eretz Mitzrayim al tziv'otam. Again, here Israel is being compared to an army or a host, right? We mentioned that before, that everything in the Torah and in Israel is very hierarchical. So we saw that before the descendants of Levi could be mentioned, we first have to at least say this, mention Reuven and Shimon up at the beginning of this chapter. הם המדברים אל פרעה מלך מצרים להוציא את בני ישראל ממצרים הוא משה ואהרון. So that's kind of a also summary sentence. That's why you have this repetition. hu Aaron u'Moshe asher amar Yehovah lehem. And at the end, hu Moshe ve'Aaron. Okay? It's Aaron or Moshe, Moshe ve'Aaron. So that's kind of a summary sentence. ויהי ביום דיבר יהוה אל משה בארץ מצרים. וידבר יהוה. So when on the day that Yehovah spoke to Moses in the land of Egypt, דבר יהוה אל משה לאמור. Yehovah spoke to Moses and said, אני יהוה, דבר אל פרעה, מלך מצרים, את כל אשר אני דובר אליך. I am Yehovah, speak to Pharaoh, the king of Egypt, all of that which I speak to you, which I say to you. אומר משה לפני יהוה, הן אני Arel Sfatayim Ve'ech Yishma Elai Paro. Then Moshe again demurs. I am uncircumcised of lips. Right? So the idea of something being uncircumcised, we have an uncircumcised, circumcise your hearts, circumcise your, you know what, your dinglings, circumcise your lips. So what is uncircumcised? It means kind of like boorish, unrefined, right? That's what it figuratively means. Unrefined, unchiseled, shall we say? Just in a kind of a primordial, unrefined state. So my lips are uncircumcised. They're not refined. I don't speak well. I remember learning growing up in Hebrew school, of course, about the famous midrash. Well, they say that Moses had a lisp, or he didn't speak well, because of the, well, let's bring it up. Moses, gold and coal. So I don't remember. I don't know where this is from. I have to look it up. But it's a midrash, I believe. I remember learning it when I was in Hebrew school as a kid. Once it happened that Moses was playing on King Pharaoh's lap. He saw the shining crown studded with jewels and reached for it and took it off. Pharaoh, who was superstitious like all his fellow Egyptians and who in addition was always afraid of losing his throne, asked astrologers and counselors the meaning of this action of the infant. Most of them interpreted it to mean that Moses was a threat to Pharaoh's crown and suggested that the child be put to death before he could do any harm. One of the king's counselors, however, suggested that they should first test the boy and see whether his action was prompted by intelligence or he was merely grasping for sparkling things as any other child would. Pharaoh agreed to this, and two bowls were set before young Moses. One contained gold and jewels, and the other held glowing fire coals. Moses reached out for the gold, but an angel came to the coals. Moses snatched the glowing coal and put it to his lips. He burned his tongue, but his life was saved. After that fateful test, Moses suffered from a slight speech defect. He could not become an orator, but his words were to carry weight with all, for it was God's words that were spoken through his lips. So that's what we learned in Hebrew school. I wonder if see what Robert Alter says. So that is Exodus 6:28. Well, it's different here. It's a 30. This sentence repeats verbatim Moses' demurral in verse 12, reversing the order of the two clauses and omitting the first clause about Israel's failure to heed Moses. The recurrent language is a clear-cut instance of a compositional technique that biblical scholars call resumptive repetition. When a narrative is interrupted by a unit of disparate material, like the geological list here, the point at which the story resumes is marked by the repetition of phrases or clauses from the point where the story was interrupted. Yes, I pointed that out this morning, that this is now a resumption of the, right, it's the exact same phrases up above. So it's called resumptive repetition. I never knew what that was called before. Now I do. Thank you, Robert Alter. Moses' report of Israelite resistance to his message is not repeated because the focus now is on the impending confrontation between him and Pharaoh for the same reason. How will Pharaoh be repositioned at the end of Moses' speech, because it will be directly followed by God's enjoining Moses and Aaron to execute the first portent intended to compel Pharaoh's attention. Right? Excellent analysis, in my opinion. But it doesn't mention specifically. Let's look at Mr. Rashi. So whenever I would write the word Rashi many years ago, Microsoft Word would always try to autocorrect it to Rash. So I always call him Rash because he's a giant Rash, the worst biblical commentator ever. in the history of biblical commentators. He's horrible. He wouldn't know a Torah scroll if it fell on his head. Mr. Rashi. Okay, so this is Exodus 6, chapter 30. Let's see what Mr. Rashi says. Oh, okay. He actually says the same thing. I agree with him on this one. Okay, he's not completely horrible, right? Mer Moshe lifnei Hashem hi ha'amira she'amar lamala hen bnei Yisrael lo sham'u elai ushana katuv kavan she'ifsik ha'inyan. It's basically exactly what Robert Alter says. V'chein hi hashita ka'adam ha'omer nachzor al harishonot. Okay, fair enough. He's just making the same point that Robert Alter made, basically. He doesn't mention anything about some midrash, coal, and the gold. I don't remember where it's from. I'd have to look it up. Quickly. It doesn't matter. One of the midrashim, I would imagine. Okay, so there you have it. Okay, so that's it. That's chapter 6. Let's go on to chapter 7. Now the action starts. Now things start getting a little bit hot. I have to plug in my battery. Let me just take a 5-minute break. And then we shall come back. Let's see, what should I put on? Shabbat songs. Let's put on these same Shabbat songs. They're very boring. I don't know. Israeli Messianic Shabbat. No, thank you. Shabbat Shalom. Okay, good enough. So interesting. Oh, so much to learn. Stopping about. Oh,
שבט אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים. שבט אחים גם יחד, הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב. לה 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 לה, הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב. לה 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 לה, הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומנעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב, הנה מה טוב, לה 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 לה. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, הנה מה טוב ומה נעים. הנה מה טוב ומה נעים, שבת אחים גם יחד.
שמע שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו אדוני שמע ישראל שמע ישראל אדוני אלוהינו Adonai Echad. Escucha Israel, escucha Israel, el Señor es nuestro Dios, el Señor es uno. Amarás al Señor tu Dios con todo tu corazón, con toda tu alma, con todas tus fuerzas. Marca estas palabras como señal en las palmas de tus manos, como memorial entre tus ojos, en las tampas de tu casa y en las puertas. Shema Israel, Shema Israel, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Escucha Israel, escucha Israel, el Señor es nuestro Dios, el Señor tus hijos Israel. Háblales en casa, cuando camines por la calle, cuando te acuestes y te levantes, porque este es el primer mandamiento de la vida. El segundo es igual que este: ama a tu prójimo como a ti mismo, y tendrás la vida eterna. Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai
Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai Echad U'Shemo Echad Ve'ahavta et Hashem Elohecha b'chol levacha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol me'odecha.
Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shabbat Shabbat. Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat 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 Shalom. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael, Am Yisrael Chai. Am Yisrael. Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu Chai, Od Avinu, Od Avinu, Od Avinu Chai. Avenu Shalom Alechem, Avenu Shalom Alechem, Avenu Shalom Alechem. Avenu Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Alechem. Avenu Shalom Alechem. Avenu Shalom Alechem. Avenu Shalom Alechem. Avenu Shalom, Shalom, Shalom Alechem. Shalom, Shalom Yerushalayim. Shalom, Shalom Yerushalayim. Shalom, Shalom Yerushalayim. Shalom, Shalom Yerushalayim. Shalom, 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 Shalom Yerushalayim. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Pray for the peace of Jerusalem. Jerusalem shall live in peace. Shalom, 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 Shalom. Shalom, Shalom, Yerushalayim. Shalom, 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 Yerushalayim. Shabbat, Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom, Shabbat, Shalom, Shabbat, 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 Shalom.
Adonai, kol goyim shabechu, kol arumim, ki davar aleinu tov, ve'emes Adonai le'olam. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Alrighty, welcome back. This is Hakham Melech ben Yaakov of the World Alliance of Qara'im. And we will continue with the Torah study for about another half an hour to an hour, something like that. And then we'll wrap it up. And now we are in Exodus chapter 7, and things start to get a little bit serious. Let me change the sharing mode here. And there we go. There you go. Okay, so we are in chapter 7, Exodus chapter 7, verse 1, and we will forge ahead. יאמר יהוה אל משה ראה נתתיך אלוהים לפרעה ואהרון אחיך יהיה נביאך. Interesting verse, right? It says to Moshe, Yehovah says to Moses, behold, I have made you a god, Pharaoh, and Aaron and your brother Aaron will be your prophet. So it seems Moses originally complained that he didn't want to do the job, right? This is back in last week's Parsha. Was it last week's Parsha or 2 weeks ago? I think last week, maybe 2 weeks ago. And God got mad at Moshe. And then he said, listen, isn't your brother Aaron, doesn't he speak well? And he's heading towards you right now, and he'll be happy to see you. And so Moses, so the arrangement that God makes is that Moses is gonna, or that Aaron is gonna do the talking. All right, let's even find that. 6:3 maybe, something like that. Let's see, it's a Mitzrayim, okay. Okay. One second. Verse 10, this is Exodus chapter 4, verse 10. V'yomer Moshe el Yehovah bi Adoni lo ish devarim anochi. Same as the Arel Svatayim, uncircumcised lips. Gam mitmol, gam mi shilshom, gam me'az dabercha el avdecha ki kvad pet, kvad lashon anochi. Heavy in mouth and heavy in tongue am I. Again, that's the same thing as the Arel Svatayim, the uncircumcised lips. V'yomer Yehovah, he's really trying to drive the point home to God that he really doesn't know how to talk or doesn't feel he knows how to talk. V'yomer Yehovah elav mi sham pele adam u'mi yasum ilem o heresh o pikach or iver halo anochi Yehovah ve'ata lech anochi im picha oreticha asher tidaber v'yomer again he's demurring, he doesn't want anything to do with this. Yehovah became angry with Moses. Yomer halo Aaron achicha Lewi yadati ki daber yidaber hu. Your brother Aaron, I know that he certainly knows how to talk. And not only that, but he's heading out towards you. When he sees you, he's going to be very happy. דיברת אליו, ושמת את הדברים בפיו, ואנוכי אהיה עם פיך, ועם פיהו, והוריתי אתכם את אשר תעשון. So here we go. So this is a setup. You shall speak to him, and you shall place the words in his mouth, and I will be with your mouth and with his mouth, and I will tell you, plural, what you should do. Verse 16, وَدِبَرْهُ إِلَيْكَ el ha'am. And he will speak on your behalf to the people. V'hayahu yeh lecha lepeh, v'ata tieh lo leElohim. And he will be for you as a mouth, and you will be for him as a God. V'tamateh hazeh tikach biyadecha. Okay, and so this is again the relevant phrase here. He will be for you as a mouthpiece, and you will be for him as God. So the setup is Moses is going to be like God, right? Don't touch me. I'm the God. I'm over here. You know, I don't even talk to you. I'm so up high. And Aaron is going to do the talking. So God is God is mad at Moses, but how does he react? He actually kind of gives Moses a promotion, right? He says, I'm going to make you look like a God, right? Before it was going to be, he was the God and Moses was going to be the prophet. Now Moses is going to be like the God. Notice I say not a God, God forbid. And Aaron is going to be like the prophet. So Yahweh is so kind and so merciful and has so much love for Moses. Actually he's angry at him, but he actually gives him a promotion. He's going to make Moses look like this, ineffable, kind of untouchable, godlike figure. And of course, we know that stupid Pharaoh, of course, believes that human beings are God because he believes himself to be a God, because all the pharaohs of ancient Egypt believed that they themselves were gods. So he's going to make Moses look like a god in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of here it says actually the people. Probably talking about Israel, but really talking ultimately about Egypt, right? So that's a setup. And we get that same thing here in chapter 7. Right? I've made you into a god, to Pharaoh. So here it is explicitly to Pharaoh. Ron achicha yeh neviecha, and Aaron, your brother, will be like your prophet, will be your prophet. So Yoah, he's so humble that he can step aside and actually make another person look like a god, right? He doesn't need to share the spotlight. But of course, ultimately, it's all about Yehovah, because the idea is that all of Egypt, all of Israel are going to know exactly who's going to behind this, who is behind this. Verse 2, Ata tidaber et kol asher atzaveh, Aron achicha yidaber el Paro, Oshilach et bnei Israel me'atzo. Okay, speaks for itself, I think. Ni akshet lev Pharaoh, I will harden the heart of Pharaoh. Uhribeti et ototai et moftai be'eretz Mitzrayim, and I will, in other words, the context here is in order that I should be able to multiply my signs and my wonders. Mufet, it's like a wonder. Mufet. But Eretz Mitzrayim, let's look at this word mufet for a second. It's like an ot, kind of. Oh, this is interesting. See, I never knew that. See, mufet is from Yafa. Interesting. If that's the case. Let's see here. Special display of God's power. Ot v'mofet, it's usually used with ot. Sign of token of future event. Shemofet. Miracle sign wondered at, or mofet from Yafa, in the sense of, wow, miracle by implication, a token or omen, miracle, wow. Fair or beautiful. Interesting. So that we relate the word mofet to the word yafet. That I never knew, if that's correct. Okay. Move this over. Alrighty. ולא ישמע עליכם פרעה, ונתתי את ידי במצרים והוצאתי את צבאותיי, את עמי בני ישראל מארץ מצרים בשפטים גדולים. And Pharaoh will not listen to you. And so I will place my hand against Egypt, and I will bring out my hosts, my armies, my people, the children of Israel, from the land of Egypt with great judgments. So now there's going to be Mofet, there's going to be Ot, there's going to be Shvatim. So we have Ot, Mofet, Shvatim. What would be the singular? Shefet, I guess. No, Shofet. The Shofet is a judge. A Shefet would be a judgment. A Mishpat, but it's not Mishpatim, it's Shvatim. Well, we'll just use the plural. Moftim, Otot, Moftim, and Shvatim. Signs, wonders, and judgments. Verse 5, Yadu Mitzrayim ki ani Yehovah bin toti et yadi al Mitzrayim. And Egypt shall know that I am Yehovah when I stretch out tot, note, unote shemayim v'yosed aretz. Right? Noten means to stretch out. That's from the prayer, the rabbinical prayer, the Aleinu. Unote shemayim, stretches out the heavens, v'yosed aretz, and sets the foundations of the earth. Want to say something? Okay. Alrighty. הוצאתי את בני ישראל מתוכם, and I shall take out the children of Israel from within them, from among them. Yas Moshe. Has such a thing ever been done that one nation has been taken out of another nation, right? We'll see that later. Yas Moshe ve'Aaron kashet tziwa Yehovah otam ken asu. Moshe and Aaron did as commanded. Roger, Wilco. ומשה בן 80 שנה ואהרון בן 83 שנה בדברם אל פרעה. So Moses was 80 years old. Aaron was 83 years old. We should add that here. Yeah, we added it already. So if we get a chance to do the numbers today, I don't know if we will, then that will also be relevant. And now we got some magic tricks. Gather around, kids. It's magic trick time. Verse 8, ויאמר יהוה אל משה ואל אהרון לאמור, כי דבר עליכם פרעה לאמור, תנו לכם מופת. When Pharaoh says to you, give us a wonder, give us a miracle, give us a, otot muftim is usually mentioned together, some kind of wonder, some kind of miracle, I guess you can translate it as. Something that couldn't possibly be explained in normal, rational ways. ואמרת אל אהרון, קח את מטך והשלך לפני פרעה יהי לתנין. So Aaron's going to be the one who's going to actually do the magic trick, the old Cain turning into the serpent magic trick. And so Aaron's going to do it with his staff. And Moses is going to tell him to do it. So that fulfills what was being said earlier, that Moses is going to be like the God and is going to be like God, and Aaron's going to be like the prophet. So Moses is going to basically give the message to Aaron as God would give a message to a prophet, and then Aaron is going to carry it out. Yavo Moshe Aaron. Now, just had a thought, but I don't know if I want to chase it down right now. יבוא משה ואהרון אל פרעה ויעשו כן כאשר ציווה יהוה וישלח אהרון את מטהו לפני פרעה ולפני עבדיו ויהי לתנין. So here it says that Aaron is taking his staff but if we go back to Exodus 4, well, it says right here Moses' staff. So how did Aaron get to do the trick with his own staff? Or did Moses pass the staff over to Aaron? I seem to remember this verse that says Moses passed the staff over to Aaron. So let's see if we can find that. The best way to do what he did. המטה הזה תיקח 4:17. דיבר לך אל העם והיה הוא יהיה לך לפה ואתה תהיה לו ואת המטה הזה תיקח בידיך אשר תעשה בו את האותות. So Moses still has the staff over here. So it's still in Moses' hand, the staff, at this point, because he hasn't met Aaron yet. And then we have the staff shows up again in verse 20. So he took the magic staff, the staff of God in his hand. Okay, so it's still in Moshe's hand at this point. So how does Aaron get it? Now we go to the next place it appears is Exodus 7:9. So that's weird. דבר אליכם פרעה לאמור תנו לכם מופת ואמרת אל אהרון קח את דמתך והשלך לפני פרעה יהי לתנין. So now it's Moses says to Aaron, take your staff. So it's no longer the staff of God. So how did that happen? Is Aaron using his own staff? Or did Moses pass the magic staff over to Aaron? Is there another word used for staff? I don't think so. Shevet? No, I don't remember any other word. Huh, interesting. Let's see what Rashi has to say. Just for kicks and giggles. So we are in 7. Chapter 7, verse 9. מופת אות להודיע שיש צורך במי ששולח אתכם. צרוך, not צורך, צרוך. Okay. So nothing. See if Robert Alter picks up on it. So this is in verse 9. The noun here used here, tanin, is not the ordinary nachash, snake of the burning bush story. When God in verse 15 refers to the staff that turned into a snake, maybe alluding to the burning bush episode, the tanin is usually a larger threatening reptile, as William H.C. properly observes. It's sometimes used for the Egyptian crocodile or for a mythological dragon. The Hebrew zoological reference is clearly slippery, allowing a couple of commentators to see a nilotic cobra in the transformed shepherd's staff. But it doesn't say anything. Well, somehow or another, okay, I'm done chasing this down, but somehow or another, it's either that same staff that's now let me check one more thing. One second. Anyway. So maybe it's a different staff. Maybe Aaron's turns into a tanin, and Moshe's staff of Elohim turns into a nachash. Besides, that staff was supposed to be used to show the Israelites, to make them believe that it was God who sent him, not necessarily for Pharaoh. Well, I don't know. We'll have to leave it unresolved for the moment. Verse 10, V'yavo Moshe ve'Aaron el Paro v'yasu chen ka'asher tziva Yehovah. Oh, I did it. Yeah, no, I didn't do this one. Tziva Yehovah v'yashlech Aaron et matehu lifnei Paro v'lifnei avadav v'yihi letanin. So then it turns into a serpent. Okay. Verse 11, ויקרא גם פרעה לחכמים ולמכשפים. So the wise men, the sorcerers, the warlocks, I guess you could say. ועשו גם הם חתומי מצרים. And the Egyptian magicians did the same. בלעתם כן. With their magic tricks. Their flames. Okay. I don't know why we put lahatem. Literally, their flames. I don't know what the connection would be. Their magic tricks, their enchantments. Maybe somehow fire was used to make enchantments. I don't know. Speculating. Verse 12. וישליכו איש מטהו. והיו לתנינים ויבלע מטה אהרון את מטותם. So the Egyptian magicians. I gotta play the Egyptian magician thing. Hold on a second. You've never heard the Jerky Boys. It's old, but it's good. Let's see if we can do this. Little humor break.
Yes, hello. I called you before. My name is the Egyptian magician.
The Egyptian magician?
Right. I called. They told me to call back in 10 minutes.
Hold on. Hi, can I help you?
Yes, my name is Tarba, Egyptian magician. I do magic acts.
Okay.
I
want to come in and audition?
What I do, I eat hot coal.
That's great.
I stab customer and I with saber, and I stick my cat on my performers and they mold them on stage.
Wow.
But in my country, that's considered indecent.
Yeah, that's considered magic.
Right. And then I light people on fire, but it is fake, and I right. But that's what I do. The Egyptian magician. Right. Then for encore, I punch my chest, and then it disappears to the crowd.
You punch your chest and it disappears in the crowd. That's it?
Yes, my friend.
Well, if you want to stop you would only be able to do 2 tricks.
Okay, that's good enough for me. I'm the best.
Okay, every Wednesday night.
Then I have small mountain cat
The mountain cat.
that I terrorize people.
You terrorize people with the mountain cat. Okay, well, I don't know if you better not bring the mountain cat in for the first time.
Okay.
Okay? Come by, 8:45, sign up, and see how you do.
Okay, and then maybe just for extra bonus, I choke some of you faculty staff.
Yeah, you choke the staff. Yeah, okay. Whatever.
Okay, then I come out with whip.
Yeah, you come out with the whip. Okay, we'll stop by and we'll see how the act goes.
Okay, my friend.
Thank you, my friend.
Okay, couldn't resist. Alrighty, let's get rid of that. So that's what I think of whenever I read the word Khattumei Mitzrayim, Egyptian magicians. Okay, so Dumei Mitzrayim, the Egyptian magicians. Yes, my friend. Okay, so Aaron's staff ate, or Aaron's serpent ate the other serpents. So I guess Aaron kind of wins round one. But Pharaoh is not convinced. Wayomer, verse 14, Wayomer Yehovah el Moshe kabed leb Pharaoh me'en mishalech ha'am. Yehovah said to Moses, the heart of Pharaoh is very heavy. He refuses to send the people. Now, there's something in Egyptian lore about a heavy heart, which I've heard from a number of people. So apparently in the Egyptian Book of the Dead, find it. Right. Okay, history for kids. Enough.
They measure the heart against the feather.
Right.
And if the feather is
Yes, my friend.
heavier than the feather or something.
Ancient Egyptians believed that they must follow certain events in order to be able to make it into the afterlife. These different events would take place before different Egyptian gods and judges. One thing that would happen would be that the person that died would be asked if they'd broken laws or committed any kind of sins. The dead would decide if they were innocent or guilty. Oh boy. If the people were innocent, they would have a voice of truth and they would be transported to the weighing of the heart. The most important ceremony was the weighing of the heart. This had to happen in order for a person to be able to go to the afterlife. The person would have their heart weighed to see if it was heavy or if it was light. If someone's heart was heavy, they would never make it to the afterlife and they would be stuck in the underworld forever, or they would just disappear. So hardening or making Pharaoh's heart heavy in the context of this is bad news, right? If he makes Pharaoh's heart heavy, according to this, Pharaoh would never make it to the afterlife. He would just be stuck in the underworld forever, or would just disappear. If the heart was light, the person would be able to go to the land of two fields, which was a place full of joy and happiness, the happy hunting ground, Shangri-La or something like that. This was a place where the people would meet their loved ones that had died before them. Amut, the goddess Amut, is part of the weighing of the heart. She's one of the goddesses that is very feared because she had the head of a crocodile and would eat someone if they did something wrong when judgment was happening. Oh my lordy. Amut is also part lion and part hippo. She's a hungry, hungry hippo. These are the three animals that were the animals that were most feared and respected by the ancient Egyptians. So crocodile, lion, and hippo. Ma'at was another goddess that was there during judgment. She was the goddess of law and justice. She would also be there to make the seasons and stars to line up so the people would tell the truth. When a person would go to get their heart weighed, it would be weighed by the feather of truth on a scale. Anubis. Anubis was the god of thought. And he would be the one that would weigh the heart. If the heart was as light as the feather, the person would be able to move to the afterlife. If the person's heart was heavier than the feather, they would be sent to the underworld, or Amut would eat them. If a person's heart was light, it meant that he or she had done many good deeds and no sin. This meant the person was pure of heart. The heart was considered the most important body part, according to the ancient Egyptians. They felt that the heart was the most important because it was the only part of the body that knew what a person was feeling and thinking and the good or bad deeds they had done. The heart was so important that ancient Egyptians would not remove the heart when someone died, and it was the only organ that would stay in the body. When a person became a mummy, they still had their heart in their body. If the heart was removed, the person could not go into the afterlife. Even when the heart is weighed during judgment, the heart is then returned back to the body and will never be taken again. More facts about Egyptian weighing of the heart. Ancient Egyptians would do good deeds so their heart would be light. When a person did not make it to the afterlife, they just disappeared and were never seen again. Yikes. The Egyptians were known to do good deeds because they didn't want to disappear. Egyptians wanted to meet their family and friends in the land of two fields. Amut would eat a heart if it was a heavy heart. Thought was the one who would record information on the heart if it was heavy or light. Okay, so that's that. So again, and I've heard this from a number of people, this gives context, or this could possibly be giving context to the idea of Moshe Kaved Lev Pharaoh, that Pharaoh's heart is heavy. You know, this is indeed referring to and that comes from the Egyptian Book of the Dead, which is a book where they describe what a person should do, what happens to a person when he dies, and what he should do to get into into heaven, or the afterlife, not heaven. I guess the land of two fields. So having a heavy heart in this context is not a good thing. Verse 15. Lech el paro baboker hine yotzei hamayma. Go to Pharaoh in the morning. He is going out to wash, to the water. V'nitzavta likrato, and you shall station yourself in front of him, or stand near him, stand as he's coming out. Atzvati or on the bank of the river. Amateh shenachash tikach biyadech, and the which can weigh snake, and here nachash in so is this the magic wand? Is this the Matea Elohim again that Moses has? Because is our Moses before? I don't know, because right, Tanin, and there was no indication that Aaron was given the staff. So maybe there are two different staffs. Maybe Moses is that staff that Matei Elohim that Moses that received its magic powers at the incident of the burning bush, and maybe Aaron has another one that was used to impress the Egyptian magicians, and that turns into a tanin, which again we read is a different kind of animal, more larger, scary, like a crocodile, or maybe it's just the same staff. I don't know. Question mark. Okay, verse 16. V'amarta elau Yehovah Elohei ha'ivrim shalchani elecha lemor shalach et ami ya'avduni b'midbar hine lo shamata ad כה. And now it's God says that Moses is the one who's supposed to say it, but Moses is not supposed to be doing the talking. Aaron is supposed to be doing the talking. So maybe it implies that Moses is to tell this to Aaron, or maybe Moses is doing the talking this time. I don't know. Let's see what else we can learn about it. Verse 17. Ko amar Yehovah bezot teda ki ani Yehovah hine anochi makeh b'mateh asher biyadi. So it seems like Moses is doing the action, and he's using the one that turns the staff that turns into a snake. And the fish that are in the rivers, and any translation of Yaor into Nile is incorrect. I mean, by context, it could be referring to the Nile River. But Yaor means a river in general. Egyptian loan word. Coptic. Yero. Yaro. Stein. Uru. Stream. Okay, I don't want to get bogged down on that. Tamut ba'ash hayor, the river or the Nile should become stinky. She'll have stink, become putrid and rancid. No, those are not the right words. Putrid, I think, is the right word. When you Mitzrayim lishtot mayim min hayor. Go to view so patach. Sodom and Gomorrah. ואת האנשים אשר פתח הבית היכו בסנוורים מקטון עד גדול וילאו למסות הפתח. The same word, same verse, same verb here, ילאו. They grew weary of. They wearied themselves. To be weary or impatient. אלוהים נחלתך ועל ילאה אתה כוננת. ידו בצלחת נלאה להשיבה אל. That's speaking about the lazy man. I love that proverb. The slothful hideth his hand in his bosom. It grieveth him to bring it again to his mouth. Taman atzel yado betzalachat nil'a ashiva el piv. Nila, he wearies himself. He's too tired, or he's doesn't want to be bothered. Can't be bothered to bring it back to his mouth. So that's this verb here. So they wearied, they became weary, or they will not want to. They'll have no desire. I would translate it that way. The fish that are in the rivers will die, and the rivers will become putrid, and Egypt will have no desire to drink water from the rivers or from the Nile. That's how I would translate it. See how Robert Alter does it, just for the heck of it. Oops. And that is 7:18. 7:18. Oops. And the fish that are in the Nile will die, and the Nile will stink, and the Egyptians will not be able to drink water from the Nile. Okay? Fair enough. Verse 19, Vayomer Yehovah el Moshe, Emor el Aharon kach matcha, netei yadcha al mimei Mitzrayim. Okay. So it is Aaron who's doing it. So Moshe's doing it. I mean, he's the one organizing the whole thing, but it's actually Aaron carrying it out, right? So God tells Moshe to do it, but really what's meant by that, we see here, is that it's going to be Aaron who's doing it. Yomer Yehovah el Moshe, Emor el Aaron kach matcha netei yadcha al mimei Mitzrayim al naharotam al yeorehem על אגמיהם ועל כל מקווה מימיהם ויהיו דם היה דם בכל ארץ מצרים ובעצים ובאבנים. So basically Aaron carries it out. So when God tells Moshe to do it, he really means you and Aaron go and do the whole you be the God and Aaron will be the prophet kind of thing, but it's really Aaron who's going to be doing it. Okay, verse 20. ויעשו כן משה ואהרון כאשר ציווה יהוה וירם במטה יח את המים אשר ביאור. Struck the water. Interesting, right? Remember Moses at Meribah in the desert strikes the rock. It says you rebels. Here he's striking the water. Okay. I think it would be a stretch to say that one is kind of thematically related to the other, but let's just, for the heck of it. Yeah, there's not even any comments here. Here's the staff. This would have to be Aaron, right? Okay. יהפכו כל המים אשר ביאור לדם, so everything turned to blood. דגה אשר ביאור מתה, and the fish died. ויבאש היאור, and the Nile stank, was putrid. ולא יכלו מצרים לשתות מים מן היאור, and Egypt could not drink water from the Nile, the river. אי אדם בכל ארץ מצרים, and there was blood in all the land of Egypt. The whole place looked like a horror movie. ויעשו כן חרטומי מצרים בלעתיהם. Interesting. Before it was lahatehem. Here it's latehem. We'll get back to that in a second. So the Egyptian magicians did the same with their magic tricks. So therefore, Paro saw no reason to listen to Moses because his own Egyptians could do the same thing. So it's like, no big deal, right? Okay, what do I want to look up? So up here, oh my God. Here it says, Chatumei Mitzrayim belahatehem, which I thought would be related to the word lahat, which is like a blade or a flame. But here it says latehem. Well, let's see what this brings up. Secrecy or mystery. Chatumim belatehem. Balat. Ka. Arima. Tavo belat. That's what Ruth, when she sleeps on the grain pile. David belat lemor. That's when David is anointed. Asher Shaul belat. Okay. All right, fair enough. So that makes more sense. So latehem, with their secrets, incantation, form of la'at, or else principal form from lut, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So then why up above does it say lahatehem? Is that just a mistake? Let's look at do this again. No. Oops. Where's lahatem? $11. 7-11. Perfect for the Egyptian magician. So Westminster Leningrad Codex also has lahatehem. Paleo Hebrew, whatever that means. Latem. Okay. I guess this is an alternate form of latem. Weird. Or it's two different words, but I don't think so. Let's see. We can see it in the Leningrad Codex. So the links. What is this? A second. It's the London Codex, not the Leningrad Codex. Let's try this. Oops. Okay. Open library, read. Okay. So let's get this out of the way. Yeah, so this is the actual Leningrad Codex. So let's try to find it, shall we? This will be fun. I'm gonna make it bigger. Now we gotta trace it down. Matsanu. Ooh, it's hard to read. A little bit. Matsanu. יאמרו אם מצאנו חן בעיניך ותאוות הארץ הזאת. So this is Genesis. I think. Let's go a little bit more. No, I think I went way too far. Way too far. No, let's go back. This is so much fun. שדה ששת ימים ביום השביעי Shabbat, so it's got to be before this. Not by much. Why? Yesh. Et asher al bito lemor malay et amtachot. So this is end of Genesis. That's with going down to Egypt. Yomer Moshe ko amar Yehovah. Kichatzot halayla. Okay, we're getting close, but we got to go back. 79, let's go to 71. Nashecha v'yikach Moshe et ishto. Okay, so a little bit ahead. That's where he's leaving. So let's try 76. That's probably too far. Yehovah el Moshe niteh et yadcha al hashemayim vayhi barad. Okay, we got to go back a little bit. 77. Let's try 76. Oh. 75. ויאמר יהוה אל משה בוא אל פרעה ואמרת אליו כה אמר יהוה שלח את עמי יעבדוני ואם אין אתה ישלח הנה אנוכי נוגף את כל גבולך צפרדע. Okay, we're almost here. This is frogs. This is the froggies. So maybe over here. It's got to be on this page. ויאמר יהוה אל משה אמור אל אהרון. Here we are. קח מטך נטה ידך על מימי מצרים על נהרותם ועל יאוריהם ועל ערמיהם ועל כל מקווה מימיהם ויהי. Okay, so this is so it was a little bit, wait a second, let's go back. It was a little bit before this, right? So we want it's a little bit before this because we're looking for verse 7. No, we're looking for verse, where was that? Oh, darn. Verse 11. יעשו גם חתומי מצרים בלהטיהם כן. Okay. So a little bit before. אומר יהוה אל משה כבד לב פרעה מאין שלח העם בוקר כבד לב פרעה. Where's that? Right here. So that's 14. Just got to go back just a little bit. Folks, you should see this is so much fun. I'm tracking something down in the Leningrad Codex. So it should be right around here. Okay. I'm looking at actual photographs of the Leningrad Codex to see, because it says Lahatehem, which doesn't make sense. It should be Latehem. So let's see what the Leningrad Codex actually says. Okay, at any rate. Kra, it's a little difficult to read sometimes. Hakham Mechashim Ya'asu Gam Hem Chatumei Mitzrayim. There it is, Belahatehem. Belahatehem, right there. It's the first paragraph on the page. Let's see if I can blow it up. Blow it up. I mean, enlarge it. A little bit more. Mechashafim Ya'asu Gam Hem Chatumim Mitzrayim Belahatehem. There it is. I wish I could draw on the screen, but I can't. Maybe I can go like this. No, all it does. There it is, right there. Where my can go a little bit larger, a little bit larger, and there it is. It's Belahatehem in the Leningrad Codex. And there's no Ketiv here or anything like that. So there we have it. Okay, so I guess it's an alternate form of Latehem. Lahatehem. Okay. Go till the end of this page here. And Pharaoh's heart was not hardened this time, but it was strengthened, it was fortified, it was made strong, stubborn. And he did not listen to them according to what Yehovah spoke, because the Egyptian magicians had done their little trick. And Pharaoh turned around and went back to his house. Shat is like turn or set, right? Yeah, sheet bin khan. Yep. He did not set his heart upon this, to this. Yachparu kol Mitzrayim svivot hayaor mayim lishtot ki lo yachlu lishtot mimei hayaor. So they started digging in the ground looking for wells, water wells. V'yimalesh at yamim achrei kot Yehovah et hayaor. And this lasted for 7 days. Now we got froggy frogs. Yeah, we got the froggies. We got the froggies. We'll go a little while longer. We'll go for another 15 minutes maybe, because I'm just enjoying this so much. ויאמר יהוה אל משה בוא אל פרעה ואמרת אליו כה אמר יהוה שלח את עמי ויעבדוני ואם אין אתה לשלח הנה אנוכי נוגף את כל גבולך בצפרדעים ושרץ היאור צפרדעים ועלו ובאו בביתך בחדר משכבך ועל מיטתך. So your bedroom, in modern Hebrew, bedroom is a cheder shena, and in biblical Hebrew, it's apparently a cheder mishkav, a lying down room. Ve'al mitatecha, u'bebeit avadecha, u'beba'amcha, u'betanurecha, u'bemish'arotecha. Your kneading bowls. We spoke about this morning about bread, that we found out that Egypt, they were the first ones to really introduce the idea of concentrated yeast or concentrated leavening agents being added to dough to make it rise more quickly. And this here, the mish'arotecha, are the kneading trowels. Inside the word mish'arotecha, you see the word se'or, which is usually understood as sourdough or sourdough starter, I should say. The word sour comes from the Hebrew word se'or. That's not speculation. That's etymologically solid. Although I don't want to go through it right now, but I've looked it up in the past. And I think actually some of the main etymologies admit it. Let's see. I bet they do. You know what? They're probably going to make some reconstructed Indo-European root bologna. Sour. Let's see if any of them are brave enough to admit it. Sour sorrel. Dictionary. Etymology. Icelandic sword, they don't even admit it. Okay. Anywho, that's where the word sour comes from. Or, excuse me. So the mish'arotecha are the kneading trowels, or the kneading bowls, they usually translate it as. It is the same kneading bowls that the Israelites put on their shoulders and wrapped their garments around when they were fleeing Egypt And then they took the dough, and so the dough, because they were fleeing, the dough didn't have time to rise because they didn't get out in 18 minutes, I guess. And so they made matzot out in the desert, and that's the reason we eat matzot. It's one of the reasons we eat matzot. Not the only one, but one of the reasons we eat matzot on Chag HaMatzot, on the festival of unleavened bread. Okay. And we also learned this morning that the Egyptians, they basically were the founders of bread. There had been flat bread before, or there had been bread that was naturally, allowed to sit and naturally rise. But this idea of injecting concentrated leavening agents into a dough, we saw earlier this morning in this morning's study, seems to have been laid down or founded by the Egyptians. So this idea of these kneading bowls or these kneading troughs obviously was a big thing in Egypt. Bread was a huge thing in Egypt. We saw this morning. Verse 4, so the frogs are going to cover everything. So here's Aaron, he's taking the magic staff again. And again, now this third plague, or the second plague, is also going to be affecting, it's going to be on the rivers and the streams and the ponds. Verse 6, V'yet Aaron et yado al mimei Mitzrayim v'ta'al et tzfardea v'tachas et eretz Mitzrayim. And up comes not a whole bunch of frogs, but one single frog. And Rashi says, this is chapter 7, chapter 8, verse 5. Remember learning this in Yeshiva. One of the stupidest Rashis ever. Oops. So it's numbered differently. Ta'alat Svardea, Rashi says, listen to this idiot. What a stupid, he is just the worst commentator ever in the history of all commentators on the Torah. Rashi is the worst. Svardea chad aita. There was a single Svardea, single frog. Ayu makin ota. Makin ota. And when they struck it, Vihi mateze nachilim. I don't understand that Hebrew there, so I'm going to go with the English. But when they struck it, it was split. So latiz in modern Hebrew is to spray. Nichilim. Okay, so it's split into many swarms. Okay, let's go back to the Hebrew. Zeu midrasho. This is its understanding from Sanhedrin. Samach is 80, 87. Lamed Mem. Lamed is 30. Mem is 40. Mem Nun 50. Samach 60, 67. Upshuto yesh lomar. Shirut tzvardeim kore leshon yechidut. Oh, okay, fair enough. So he doesn't say it. Okay, my mistake. All right, Rashi, not so bad. So he says exactly the idea, but it's a literal, okay. But according to its simple translation, Sherutz, I don't know what Sherutz is. Swarm, like Sheretz. Okay, Sherutz Tzvardaim, Korei Leshon Yechidut. The swarm of frogs is called by the singular form. V'chein, Akinam, and the same with the kinam, with the lice. Ha rechisha. 1 second. Rechisha Puduliera Bilaz in the foreign language, which was French for him. But Afta'al Atzvardea Grenoliere belaz, and then we get another French word. Grenoliere in French. Okay, so fair enough. So he doesn't, but he does point to Sanhedrin 67b. We get a reference here to Sanhedrin 67b in Exodus Rabbah 10:4. Let's look at Sanhedrin 67b just for the heck of it. What's that? Yeah, I read that book. I read that this morning. I know it. Okay. What you sent me just now. Yeah. Let's just see here. Well, 1 second. I gotta focus on this now. Just wait. All right, let's see if we can find it. Here we go. There we go. So that's the source right there, at least in the Gemara. It is stated with regard to the plagues of Egypt, and the frog came up and covered the land of Egypt, Exodus 8:2. Noting that the term the frog is written in the singular, Rabbi Elazar says at first it was one frog, it spawned and filled the entire land of Egypt with frogs. Okay. Tana Rabbi Akiva, Omar Tzvadeh Achad Aita Umala Kol Haaretz Mitzrayim. Omar lo Rabbi Elazar ben Azariah, Akiva ma lecha etzel Haggadah kala mi dvorotecha velech etzel negaim. Okay, I gotta go to the English for that one. What are you doing occupying yourself with the study of Agadah? This is not your field of expertise. Take your statements to the tractates of Nigaim and Oalot. In other words, it's preferable for you to teach that the halachot of the impurity of leprosy and the impurity imported in blah, 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 blah. Rather, the verse to be understood as follows. It was one frog. It whistled to the other frogs, and they all came after it. Okay, so at any rate, okay. Anywho, that's interesting stuff, I have to say, the Gemara. But okay, so now we know the source of this. I thought it was Rashi, but Rashi was vindicated. I called him an idiot for no reason, although there are many other reasons to call him an idiot. But so we see the source here, Sanhedrin 67b. The Aletz Vadev the Chaset Aretz Eretz Mitzrayim Amar Rabbi Elazar Tzvadei Achad Aita Ashritza Umala Kol Eretz Mitzrayim. So that's the source there. This Sanhedrin 67b, the statement of Rabbi Elazar. Okay. Sorry, Rashi. I'll call you an idiot for something else, say not this. It's getting late. Another 5 minutes or so, and then I'm going to stop. This time, Ya'alu et tzvardaim al Eretz Mitzrayim. So the Egyptian magicians were able to do the same thing. Okay, so the Egyptian magicians were able to. So now we got three. So we have one trick so far. That was the whole. That was the serpent, the staff turning into the serpent, and then we have two plagues so far. We have the. So in the case of the serpent, the Egyptian magicians were able to replicate it, and then Aaron's serpent ate the other serpents. So, if Pharaoh really wanted to see that as a sign that Aaron's trick was better than his Egyptian magicians, he could have, but he didn't want to. He saw what he wanted to see, which was that it was equal, even though it wasn't really equal. It was a little bit extra, right? And he could have seen it right there and stopped the whole thing, but of course his heart was hardened. Then we've got the blood. The Egyptian magicians were able to replicate that, so Pharaoh said, go home. And now we have the frogs. So now, here's something interesting. So now Pharaoh is calling Moshe and Aaron, please beg God or entreat Yehovah to take the frogs away. So even though he says, even though the Egyptian magicians were able to replicate the trick, still Pharaoh is now, for the first time, basically, kind of begging to Yehovah. It's the first time you recognize there's some power in this Yehovah feller. I shouldn't say feller. In his eyes, this Yehovah, this God that he never heard of before. We said it's he even promises to send the people away. That's how much the frogs were bothering him. So really, Pharaoh, again, was able to see here that Moshe and Aaron's frogs were a little bit different than the Egyptian magician's frogs, right? Because he's begging Yehovah to take the frogs away, and he's even offering to let the people go. Yomer Moshe le Pharaoh, this is Exodus chapter 8, verse 9. Hitpa'er alai lematai ati lecha ula'avadecha la'amcha. And it always says again, to you, your servants, and your people. This is a show for the whole people.
How did the Egyptians, like, if the power of God was used by Moses to, make all these things happen,
Right.
or if it was just the power of God, then how did the Egyptians do?
Yeah, it's an excellent question. I spoke about it this morning, and it's something I've wondered about for years. It really is an excellent question. I think that either the two answers I come up with is that it was just kind of like, magic tricks, like pulling a bunny out of a hat. Moshe's stuff was the real thing, and theirs was just pulling a bunny out of a hat. And that's why you see that in each case, Moshe and Aaron, they kind of get the upper hand, because in the case of the staff turning into a serpent, Moshe's or Aaron's serpent eats the rest. Okay, so what they could have done is just like you pull a bunny out of a hat. Here's my staff. Oh, now it's a snake. Maybe they had snakes there. But Moshe won that battle because his magic was real, because God was behind it. It was a miracle, we could say, from God. In the case of the blood, it does say that the Egyptian magicians replicated that trick. That's the first plague, but it's really not clear to what degree, because you have this description afterwards that everything stunk, all of the rivers, all of the streams, all of the ponds stunk, and that the Egyptians had to start digging holes in order to get fresh water to drink. So maybe the Egyptian magicians did like, here's a bowl of water and now it turns red or something like that, right? Again, you always see that the Israelite plagues, or the plagues brought on by Moshe, seem to be a petach. It gives Pharaoh an entrance, or what's the word? It gives him a glimmer of hope that his magicians are doing the same thing, and so that allows him to do what he wants to do in the first place, which is ignore Moshe and Aaron. So that's my explanation, because you never see the same damage or the same intensity or the same. Oh, look at Google. Navi. And you never see the same intensity with the tricks by the actions by the Egyptian magicians that you do by Aaron and Moshe. In each case, maybe or maybe not. Maybe it's on a very small scale, but it's presented. But again, Pharaoh is seeing that's enough. I've seen enough. Moshe and Aaron, you're just bullshitting me. here my magicians just, pulled a rabbit out of a hat, or turned a staff into a snake.
People using forces other than God to do supernatural things, like the Witch of Endor, for example.
The Witch of Endor is not, that's different. That's 2 Samuel chapter 11. And that's a little bit different because that's necromancy. So necromancy is not the same as sorcery, okay? It's not the same as tapping into black magic. Necromancy, if one believes that the dead still are in some level alive, then I could see how necromancy you could do certain things to contact the dead.
In real life, you're saying?
Yeah. Well, you can agree, and you can believe your thing, and I can believe my thing. But it's different. Yes, I believe you could.
Well, you could argue that in the story of the Witch of Endor that God was intervening at that point.
Yeah, you could argue that.
She was just a charlatan from before that point.
You could.
That's one.
There's like in the Woody Allen movie, in the New York story, in the whatchamacall, the Oedipus Rex, right? She's a charlatan. Such a funny. At any rate, and the other explanation is that there are two other explanations. The two other explanations are that magic really does exist, but I don't believe that personally.
Maybe it existed back.
That's maybe okay. That's like explanation 2B. All right, so 2A and 2B, and then the third explanation would be that God at that point also gave these Khartoumim, gave the Egyptian magicians the power to make their magic tricks at that point for the reasons that he wanted to play things out in a certain direction, right? So he allowed them to have the power to kind of trick Pharaoh into thinking that that he didn't have to listen to Moshe and Aaron. Those are my different explanations. But it's an excellent question. It's a question I've asked myself for years. All right, I'm going to go a little bit more, maybe to the end of this plague. Okay, so we read this now. So now Pharaoh is begging Moshe and Aaron to pray to God or to entreat God to get rid of the froggies. Oh, come here, little froggy. Come here, little froggy. Okay, so right. So this word hit pa'er. Pa'er is also like a wonder. Glorify, beautify. Lo titpa'er. Tifa'er. Yadam pen yitpa'er al Yisrael. Okay. That's with Gidon. Belev HaMelech lifa'er et beit. Okay, so lifa'er. So let's see how, because I want to end it now, so I don't want to think too hard. Let's see what Robert Alters, how he translates that, and let's see how Everett Fox translates that as well. So this is Exodus 8:9. Oops. 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 Exodus 8:9. Well, here it's 8:5. Moshe said to Pharaoh, "Be praised over me." That's a weird translation. "For when I shall plead for you, for your servants, for your people, to cut off the frogs from you and from your houses." Weird translation. Let's see what Robert Alter makes of it. So we said again that that's 8:9. Oops. Numbered differently. You may vaunt over me. As for when, that's a strange translation. I don't even know what that means. Vaunt over me as for when I should entreat for you and for your servants and for your people to cut off the frogs from you and from your houses. The heck does vaunt over me? I mean, I kind of know what it means, but not really. Brag and boast and flaunt and go on and on about how great something is. It's over the top, showing off. Okay. 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 I guess that kind of makes sense. I like that. I always like Robert Waller's translations. Yomer Moshe lefaro hitpa'er alai. Vaunt over me, brag over me. Okay. Make you be the one in control. I'm trying to get a sense for what he's trying to say here. It's always translated as glorify me or something like this. How do they translate it here? Accept the honor of saying. Oh, I like that translation too. Mer Moshe lefaro hitpa'er alai. Okay, I'm kind of getting a sense or feel for it. Hitpa'er alai. Namatai atir lecha. When should I entreat God for you, or when should I entreat God? Again, your servants and your people. So in other words, I guess what Moshe is saying here is by having Pharaoh be the one to choose, right? So it's showing that God really is in control, because if Moshe said, "Oh, okay, fine, the frogs will disappear Tuesday at 3:00," then maybe the whole thing's a trick. Maybe Moshe couldn't keep it running until after Tuesday at 3:00, right? So hitpa'er alai, you be the one to be honored. Please, may you may be honored. Maybe it's almost sarcastic. Maybe you please may I honor you with choosing when you want these frogs to disappear. But really what it is it's again providing proof that Yehovah is behind it, because Moshe has no idea what Pharaoh is going to say. Moshe is not choosing the time. Pharaoh is going to choose the time. And that should even be more of a sign to Pharaoh if his heart wasn't so heavy and his heart wasn't so hard, that Yehovah is behind this, right? So that's what's going on there. I said, there's just so much of a kind of a psychology going on here. It's just beautiful. I love this stuff. Okay. And Yomer lemachar, Yomer kidvarecha lema'an teda ki en ki Yehovah Eloheinu. So Moshe basically really gives the answer right there. So Pharaoh says tomorrow, and then Moshe says, as you wish. That way you'll know that there is nothing like Yehovah our God, right? In other words, it's going to prove that God is behind it, because you're going to set the time. So it's not me setting the time. It's not me controlling it. You set the time, and God is going to do it. Okay. Again, there's from you and your house and your servants and your people, right? Everyone's going to see this and understands it. And they'll only remain in the river and the Nile. Verse 12, Yitzeh Moshe Aaron me'im Faro v'yitz'ak Moshe el Yehovah ad devar tzvardaim asher sam lefaro. Verse 13, v'yas Yehovah kedevar Moshe. So Yehovah listened to Moshe. A good father will always, he's the boss over his son, but really a good father is in a certain sense a slave to his son. He'll do anything for his son because he loves him so much. And of course, Yehovah here loves Moshe very much, and that's why he listens to whatever Moshe says. And also, of course, he listens to Moshe because it's now going to prove to Pharaoh and to his household and to his servants and to his people that Yehovah is, that in ki Yehovah Eloheinu. Okay. Yamutu tzvardaim min habatim u'min hachatzerot u'min hasadot, from the houses, from the plazas, from the fields, v'yitzbaru, or from the streets. V'yitzbaru otam hamarim, and they gathered them up into piles upon piles, or into different piles. I don't know how to get heaps from this. Homer, Hemar is clay. Let's see here, dry measure. Heap. Maim Rabim, Habakkuk. 3:15. Derachta b'yam susecha chomer maim rabim. Okay. All right. Any rate, heaps. We'll leave it at that for now. Mitiv ash haaretz. And the land stunk. So this is the second time the land stunk, right? The land stunk from the blood, and then the land stunk from all the dead frogs piled up all over the place. It must have stunk. Probably Egypt smells just as bad today. With all the pollution in the Nile. V'yad Faro ki hayta harevacha. And Pharaoh saw that there was relief. In modern Hebrew, Misrat HaRivacha is the welfare office. So the relief office, the public relief, Rivacha. Right. Dachped. Let's see where else this word appears in the Torah. Only Lamentations. Wow. Interesting. Some. Space. Of course. So space. So I guess the underlying here is space. Reminds me of the word rahav, which of course is probably not etymologically related, because rahav is going to be a het and a vet. Here it's a vav, but it's the same idea. The rechovot, wide spaces, right? When the well is dug, and it's called rechovot because they were no longer fighting. The previous one was called sitnan. This one is called rechovot. It's in Genesis. So okay. So revacha means space, or by extension, relief. Alrighty. Achped et libo, and he hardened his heart, or he made his heart heavy. We go with the heavy heart. V'lo shama aleim kasher diber Yehovah, and he didn't listen to them according to what Yehovah said. Okay, then we have gnats, we have flies. Oh, there's so much more to say, but I'm going to end it here. It's been a long study. It's been a great study. Livestock, boils, hail. And we will pick it up. The Zarat Yehovah will pick it up next week. So I'm going to end it here. This has been Hakham Melech Ben Yaakov of the World Alliance of Qara'im, saying thank you for attending this study. And hope to see you next week. Shavuot Tov.